Hello and welcome back to Blood and Ashes. This is episode 98, where we will cover Crossroads of Twilight chapters 13 through 15. I am your host Mo, and I'm joined once again by my pregnant friends Willie.
Definitely not, but full of food, I guess.
Pregnant with ideas and opinions. And Jody.
Yeah, definitely not pregnant. Hello, everyone.
I, for one, look a little bit pregnant in my old age.
Hey, man, that's ubiquitous for all of us here. Just comes with the territory.
Yes. Look, my comment about being pregnant with ideas and opinions is stemming somewhat from what we briefly discussed before we hit the record button here, in that we have a lot of listener contributions and Moritz contributions regarding the Slog and the difference of opinion that Willie and I had to work through in our previous episode, which I think most listeners actually found quite enjoyable to listen to. And in fact, I actually enjoyed on the edit and the re-listen as well, which was really good. So I'm just setting the stage here to say we're going to talk Slog, okay? And it's fitting because we're in the chapters that I have always thought were going to be the hardest to digest, and
you're right.
Plenty to say.
I can't wait to get through this, get it done.
You left us alone for a month, and now I'm more team Willie
I had
than
a
I'm
good
team
break.
Moritz.
I had a good break from the schedule. I got to watch some race cars go around tracks and slide around and crash, kind of like the story does at this point in time.
Well, the cars certainly moved faster than the story does at this
Definitely,
point, I think.
even under all weird conditions, they were still going faster than this snail pace race.
Okay, save all that energy for when we get into the thick of it. I think what we'll do is, because there is quite a lot of, like I said, listener contributions we'll go through regarding the Slog. I have a lot of thoughts. Obviously, I've had a bit of time to digest it. And then also in these chapters, we've had to address some of the aspects that we've always thought, or at least I've always thought, contributed to this this concept of a Slog. Before we get into that stuff, let's do the other callbacks first, all the non-sloggy callbacks, the fun things, the random little bits of pedantry in everybody's favorite section called Callbacks. All right, Spun Spec. Bill, you were on the money. There was back in South Africa.
I was right about something.
A gentleman by the name of Sir Henry Smith, who served the British Crown at the Cape between 1828 until 1845, and he was married to a lady by the name of Lady Juana Maria Smith, and she
Let Jody
loved.
say that first. How do you say
Oh,
that?
Juana Maria. Yeah, de toda la vida.
Juana Maria. And she did, in fact, she was well loved by like everyone that met her and stuff, and they were actually quite reluctant to leave South Africa eventually. But she did enjoy, what is it? Cantaloupe melon is the
Yellow one is spun spec.
proper English, the English name for spun spec, and that is because she was of Spanish descent and had it instead of bacon in the morning. So spot on.
Ooh, I'm stoked I got something right.
Well done,
Yes, I
Billy.
mean, you often do. The Bull and Bear Market, you guys sent me back with my tail between my legs to find out where the name actually came from and not just what it means. Inconclusive. No one really knows, but I found many corroborations for at least people thinking that the rationale behind it is exactly what we've said about how a bull attacks and how a bear attacks. So that,
But basically, what
is...
you're saying is you couldn't find the answer, therefore you're wrong. That's what I'm hearing.
No.
Jody agrees with me.
That's
shaking
what we're
his
hearing.
head.
I've never been wrong in my life, so I'm not planning on starting now. Speaking of me being wrong, I had said that Sulin and Tuanda complimented Elias on knowing who they were, even when veiled. So remember when they gateway to that ridge where you know the shadow had been found, and then the two veiled maidens approach, and Elias is like, Sulin and Tuanda, and they take their veils down and like, wow, you see really well, Elias. I had completely missed the point that Perrin thinks to himself that he also recognized their scents specifically. and that Elias must be tired and that he had let slip, because that's how Elias recognized them as well. It's not because he sees well, but he could smell who they were and he sort of let it slip, which to me means that Perrin is kind of still keeping his wolfish, skills and abilities under wraps. Like he thinks that Elias actually let the cat out of the bag there and he needs to be more careful. So Perrin is not advertising that he can see really far. Like he's always hiding that fact, and he's never talking to anyone about his sense of smell and stuff, which I think is maybe another reason for why he's not, got his nose on the ground following the scent.
I was rearing to
ass in
jump
the air
at this point. Okay, or maybe it's just not as developed yet. Like he doesn't have the Elias level of connection to his nostrils.
That certainly could be true. It does seem to develop over time. So yeah, there's probably a long runway for him to go down yet. The badger in Peter Rabbit is called Tommy Brock, and there is no badger in Winnie the Pooh. Only a gopher. There was a lot of talk about badgers last time, and we were talking about the badger in Peter
I don't
Rabbit.
believe there's enough talk about badgers in general. Like, we should incorporate more badger talk.
Let's shelve the slug and these chapters and just spend 3 hours talking about badgers.
I mean, it's a divisive topic, I believe, in England. I mean, it's whether a badger's got protection and should be protected, or whether they're pests. I mean, grab yourself a hot cup of cocoa. We're going badger time.
We're going deep down the badger hole. I butchered Fail's name after I mentioned how she had let slip what her full name was in front of Galena, and you remember that's a leverage Galena holds over her to like tell Savannah and the other wise ones who she really is and what her connection to Perrin is. Her proper name at this point is Fail Ni Bashir Te Ibara.
Neat. She one of the knights.
No.
Didn't take long to work a Monty Python joke in there.
No. She's one of the knights to say neat.
Okay, Savannah as a wise one, we were wondering, I was wondering how long has Savannah been sort of pitching herself as a wise one, and not just as the de facto clan chief, because the actual clan chief had died. So I went back and I read a couple of chapters where I knew she was sort of speaking to other people in positions of power. She was not styling herself as a wise one in the meeting with the Aes Sedai and the younglings. Remember when Gawain doesn't see the guy, the Aiel in the bush, or like there was, and the peddler came past and said Morghast had been killed. But in that meeting, the Shido were making a deal with the Aes Sedai where Galena was present, and they were making a deal about capturing Rand, and the Shido would help escort him to the White Tower. So Savannah was not posing, not calling herself a wise one, and she's even reminded by Thorava. So after the meeting, as they walk away, Thorava says to her that she specifically is not a wise one and only speaks as clan chief until they can send another Shido man to Ruidian to become clan chief. But Catelyn, who was at the meeting with the Aes Sedai, so Catelyn Elredin, who is also Black Archer, she describes Savannah and she says that she has having her blouse unlaced in a way to catch the attention of men, which is one part of the wise one look also, like those Algode blouses that they wear. So in my mind, I'm picturing Savannah dressing as one, and maybe that's the reason why Thorama has to remind her, you aren't a wise one, right? So at that point anyway. And then even just before Dumai's Wells, before Dumai's Wells goes down, she has a number of aligned wise ones cut Dyelin to pieces with the one power. Do you remember that? Yeah. Those wise ones are bound to her because they are complicit in the murder of another wise one. And in this section, Savannah thinks about how she was married to two chiefs, one that went to Ruidian, Suladric, and one who didn't, Couladin. And now she would be married to the Kara Khan, which is what she's trying to do, and that all the spears will be bound to her. No mention of being a wise one also, or controlling the wise ones. But when she's observing Thorava, Somarin, and the other gang dismember Dyelin, they are referred to as the other wise one. So even in Savannah's mind, it might be creeping in there that she's thinking of herself as one of them. But certainly the other wise ones don't consider it at that point. So it happens off page somewhere where she is actually recognized as a wise one. Denny, the one guardswoman for Elayne, she has black hair. So we were talking about her like reminding us of Bronn because she doesn't fight fair, or didn't believe in a fair fight or something. She's the one that fights with a studded cudgel. She has black hair that is graying. She's got a placid face, strong arms and wide shoulders. She's blocky and about 5'6" tall. She had no concept of fighting fair, and originally she was adept with a pace-long brass-studded cudgel, but could not handle a sword. She improved after taking some lessons. So she does turn into quite a badass.
I just assumed she was already a badass.
I mean, yeah, to attain that rank anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aloe is used for all kinds of purposes, many of them medicinal, both topically and orally, so definitely not toxic. For hair, it has many beneficial vitamins and fatty acids with anti-inflammatory properties that help with dandruff and all kinds of stuff. That's why you see a lot of shampoos, called aloe vera plus and aloe vera added and all that sort of stuff. So I think that fatty leaf in the desert that the Aiel use to wash their hair is more than likely that.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm still speculative with this. It doesn't sound right.
Okay.
I need more evidence.
You are welcome to gather as much as you can get your grubby little paws on.
I do not want to gather those leaves because they are toxic.
Okay, that's the fun stuff. Now,
Yay.
Let's turn our attention to the topic of the hour, which is the slog. Like I mentioned before, a lot of listeners had written in about the slog. Some I've cut slog sections out because a lot of our listeners send in long messages and actually reference lots of different things, not just the slog. So I've cut where I can the slog stuff out so we can talk about it all holistically. And then later when we get to listener contributions, there might be another mention here or there about the slog that I couldn't remove neatly. So let's start with a voice note from Scott Wilson. It goes something like this.
Hi guys, this is Scott Wilson again. Not a whole lot to say, but I got to say I loved Willie's rant. That was so awesome. I thought it was just on point and totally good. I get what you're saying, Moritz, and about the timeline and all that, and I understand where you're going, but I loved Willie's rant. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Okay, so a big fan of Billy's point of view right there. Thanks, Scott. Thanks for throwing me a bone and at least appreciating what I'm trying to do, but it sounds like Scott is firmly in your camp.
I think people just sometimes need to have that verbal outlet, even if they don't say it themselves. You know, just hearing someone else say it.
Echo their thoughts and their feelings, yes.
Yeah, it's like a little... It's like channeling happening, and all of a sudden weaves just meet, and you feel better afterwards, and you have some chicken.
Judging from the feedback that I've gone through so far, Vil, I think you are definitely speaking on behalf of the majority, even the majority of this podcast. It seems like you and Joe are pretty much aligned. Okay, so let's move on. Thanks for that message, Scott. Let's move on to Mick Halverson, who says the following. I have a theory on the slog. It is much less sloggy this time reading along with you guys, but Willie is right about this last stretch of chapters. As you said, this book reflects the setup chapters in The Shadow Rising, where they are all time marked by Rand slamming Calandor in the Stone of Tyr. The difference is we cared more for the characters starting their arcs in that book, and I think the setup chapters were shorter. Each setup, including the prologue, are too long in this book. There is some gold here, but it is mixed with too much mud. Horse riding, baths, standing around, and laundry. The other big problem was we all waited over 2 years for this book to come out, and it seemed like it was all set up for the next couple books. Can't wait until Egwene gets captured.
I understand what you're saying, yes. Not a good thing, but it is an awesome thing.
Yes, because shit happens then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny now, like, we waited 2 years. Jordan was like making people wait 2 years, and then Martin was like, hey, hold my beer. 10 years later.
Or Patrick Rothfuss with the last Name in the Wind book, or King Killer book. He has also been I think it's been like 12 years at this point.
Oh, shit.
Long ass time. But yes, Mick, I get it. We had to wait. And there is a lot of stuff to wade through here. And like I said, the Andoran politics is the worst of it. Let's move along. Let everyone have their time to shine. We've got a message here from Daniel Dirksen, who is not as charitable as Mick and Scott so far. So Daniel says, first and foremost, love the podcast and please keep up the excellent work. Okay, cool. I'll bank that compliment. Second, Willie is absolutely right. Not only is the slog real, but this entire book should have been a chapter or two at the most. Perrin has already found Fail with a 22-day jump, yes, but he doesn't rescue her until the end of the next book. It's brutal, and that isn't even getting started on how drawn out the Elayne storyline is. Thanks again for everything, and quit gaslighting your personal dark friend. Dan.
Yeah, see, a little bit of love like that.
Yo, this is a Willie validation episode.
Oh, big time. Willie,
And also,
crack the champagne or something, because this is all about you.
evidence of crazy people like me can quickly get a following. I can, through my voice,
Yes.
rally the hordes.
Yes. You and Andrew Tate and who's
Oh, no, please
Joe
don't.
Rogan's
Don't-
old crazy
don't
conspiracy
get him.
theorist friend. I was just thinking it like, okay, Dan, 2 chapters, that's pretty aggressive. I don't know if this whole book could fit into 2 chapters and the development that happens here, but okay. I understand the sentiment. The Perrin Fail arc doesn't take up a huge number of pages, but it does play out over many books, right?
Yeah.
So it's more of a pacing issue than having to trudge through a lot of meaningless Perrin and Fail chapters. So I think this concept of us always thinking about specifically Perrin and Fail trudging through snow is a term we've used from the beginning of this podcast when we looked ahead at like where we knew the struggle was going to be. And I think we've been surprised by what we've read about Perrin and Fail in the actual moments going fairly quickly. But as Dan points out here, it's spread across multiple books. I mean, Fail got kidnapped at the beginning of the last book, and she only gets rescued at the end of the following book. So that's 3 whole books that Perrin has been doing just that, trying to find and rescue Fail.
Very important part of that is also to add the 6 years of waiting time in between the bunch of books at that
Absolutely.
point in time. So people have got this mind, your fantasy mind is stuck in trudging through the snow for 6 years.
Yes, because that's where you left them. Yes.
That's where we're at.
Yes.
You think about your D&D character development, and then you stop playing, and then
Yes.
that's where your character's at. You
Yes.
haven't leveled up yet. You haven't gotten that dagger that you've been after for so long, Craig.
Yeah. But Craig doesn't listen to this podcast.
And I'll take every opportunity for the pressure to be built on him.
Yeah, as well. Like I was tricked. I was tricked into believing there was no slog when I was, the whole trudging through the snow for 6 years.
Mm-hmm.
And then you get to that chapter and it goes, 22 days later, they found her. And I was like, oh, you see, it wasn't as bad. But
Mm-hmm.
now I've started reading more, and now I'm like, oh, wait a second.
You sound like someone that just, had their 3rd child. Like, you were tricked. Like, this can't happen again.
Yeah, exactly. This is exactly how I felt.
Yes. I mean, yes, I agree. A lot of the surrounding chapters and stuff are not exciting. Either see the 10,000 negative references to Andoran politics for the duration of our podcast, right from the beginning. So, yeah.
Right.
Then there's a quick one from Ian Yellen who says, I get the pain for those last chapters, and some of the comments you guys have said about the slog makes me think of it as Mashadar or Mashinshin.
Oh.
Okay.
Yowza.
I don't quite see it as that kind of miasma, but I mean, a lot of listeners do, and a lot of readers do. Okay. Chris Green comes in with a big one. All right. Settle in. I have a serious bone to pick with this book and the slog in general. Having read through to the end of Crossroads, I can say to Willie, it only gets worse. I know I pointed this out previously where I felt like we got more time dedicated to random Aes Sedai intrigue in the prologue than we got for the whole of the cleansing in the previous book. But now it seems like chapter on chapter has been rife with, as Willie put it, hog-tied people enjoying themselves in bathtubs during the cleansing. Again, it feels like I know more about people's leisure activities during the cleansing than I do about the pitched battle that occurred near Shadow Logoth. Now on to the slog. The way I see stories are driven by movement. That can take place as characters physically travel through different locations, so like geographical movement, like the Emonsfield 5 journeying from the Two Rivers to Shinar in the Eye of the World, for example. Or it can take place through character development, internal movement, like Egwene coming into her own as the Amelin. A story really needs one or the other to avoid becoming stagnant. At the best of times, the Wheel of Time has both. Rand journeying through the Aiel Waste comes to mind. However, large stretches of this book, all the Camelin stuff, seems to have neither. Just juxtapose the Elayne Camelin arc to Egwene's arc. Egwene, since she arrived in Celadar, had only very little geographical movement other than the slow procession from Celadar to the outskirts of Tarvalon. However, we have seen her go from puppet Amelin to a strong figure worthy of that title. We have gotten a rich picture of Aes Sedai politics, intrigue, and history from her POVs, even going on into the later books when she is a prisoner in the White Tower. She is chained and unable to touch the One Power, but she is able to demonstrate where true power really lies, and she wins many of her captors to her side. Then there's Elayne, the ultimate Nepo baby, born on third base and thinks she hit a triple, to use a popular American saying, which I don't understand, but I do understand. I've never heard it, but I get it, yes. Rand liberated Camelin from Ravin. Elayne spends the early part of her succession trying to distance from him. We are about to be subjected to hours and hours and hundreds of pages on this Camelin succession storyline while having to learn a bunch of different houses and high seats that end up amounting to nothing in the grand scheme of things. In this book alone, we get more words from the POVs of Elenia Sarand, 6,642, and Daved Hanlon, 6,287, than we do from arguably the most important character in the series, Rand, only 5,878. And to top it off, Elayne doesn't really seem to grow at all. Time after time, she's pig-headed and decides to do things her own way at her own peril, as she's captured and outwitted a few times. At the end of this storyline, she does take the throne and then immediately takes off for Tarmon Gaidon and leaves the back door open. Camelin almost immediately gets overrun by minions of the dark. Good old Talmanes has to save everyone's bacon with a roll of duct tape and a prayer. The whole arc feels like a kick in the nuts, making it really hard to read through a second time, knowing what we are in store for hundreds of pages later. Bless you all for choosing New Spring next. And then in like an asterisk's tangy scent of frustrated reader.
That is beautiful. I love it.
Applause.
I think
Yes.
I think we're gonna have a breakthrough. It's like a real breakthrough with this book, in the sense that everyone is gonna get their chance to listen to the previous episode and go like, damn, I gotta write in. And then they're going to write in and they're going to let like years of pinned up, unresolved, trudging through snow.
We're going to get emails and messages for the duration of our podcast until we're done, as people hit these chapters and feel compelled to like give their opinion on it.
Callbacks from this episode onwards.
Generations from now might still revert to this. And say, like,
people are going to look me up on social media.
Like, they felt this pain that we're feeling right now, and they're going to feel it in 2056 when they throw the book across the room. And
they'll be emailing us and we'll be dead, long gone from this earth, still getting angry emails.
Well, if you play your cards right with the Dark One, you might not.
It's not going to happen, Willie. You are being manipulated.
Look, I hear all the stuff and I get it. Like, firstly, from the beginning, I had said my least favorite part of the whole series is the Andoran politics in Crossroads of Twilight, and Crossroads of Twilight is my low point. So before I get into the slog in general, it would not be me if I were not pedantic about the point that I was trying to make in the previous episode. So bear with me. Everyone's entitled to their opinion, and this is just what the point that I was trying to make in the previous episode, and that is...
I'm sorry, there needs to be a man with a torch now saying, "Burn the witch! Don't listen to her!"
The point that I was trying to make about everyone reacting to the big channeling event, right? The cleansing of Sidin. The chapters in which other channelers around the world are reacting to the cleansing are not written about the cleansing. The event is dropped in, among other things, right? The point that I was trying to make, obviously unsuccessfully at the time, was that I see zero issue with the fact that it is dropped into other characters' chapters, and I continue to be of the opinion that it helps orient the timelines, and it would be downright weird if we did not get a reaction from people about a channeling event felt across the world. The channelers can feel it, so it would be weird not to hear them react to it. It explains why nobody other than the Forsaken arrived while it was happening, for starters, right? Like, everyone's like, oh, big channeling event. And the common theme in each one of them is, we should not go there. You know, Anura, like, chill the fuck out. Perrin says, we're not going anywhere. Avienda and Elayne, we're not going anywhere. Everyone is like, okay, there's something happening, but we're not going to go. So at least that explains why no one came to Rand's aid or showed up there other than the Forsaken. What I think you were really mad about, Willie, and which you did say, is that the surrounding story, so that the scenes in which we are reading about this thing are boring, or that you find them boring, right? And I agree to some extent, and so do many of our listeners, obviously. It's not stuff that your average reader is even remotely interested in, let alone excited about. And I can see quite clearly why someone would not necessarily be enjoying it. So the problem is, much like some of the readers had sent in, twofold. Number one is the actual pace at which the story is progressing. It has slowed right the fuck down. So I went back and I used that timeline that I've been using as a reference to find out how many days actually transpire in each book.
Oh.
All right. So this is pretty interesting. So the Eye of the World plays out over 76 days, unless you want to add the 3,000 years since the formation of Dragonmount at the front. But that's just being coy, right? Like that's okay. So 3,076 days. Or 3,000 years and 76 days.
What we following days, like standard, not
days.
Their weeks or something. Okay.
Not their weeks or anything.
Yep.
Sunrise to sunset. 76 days in the Eye of the World. The Great Hunt plays out over 196 days, but that's because they go through the portal stones, and that added 133 of those days.
Ah, yes.
So there's 63 normal days, but because they spent basically 3 months in the portal stone worlds, like when they saw all those things, and they arrive at Toman Head, remember, like much later than they actually expected. Dragon Reborn, 84 days. Shadow Rising, 68 days. Fires of Heaven, 53 days. Lord of Chaos, 101 days. 35 of those are in the prologue alone. So there's a bit of a jump there, right? So like in the prologue of Lord of Chaos, that just one chapter is 35 days of the 101. So there's another 67. So much more in line with the rest of the books. Then A Crown of Swords, book 7, plays out over 17 days. That's when Matt is in Ibudar looking for the Bowl of the Winds the whole time, right? Then The Path of Daggers, back to 49 days. Winter's Heart, so book 9, the previous book, 22 days. This book, Crossroads of Twilight, 21 days. So the last 2 books where people generally feel the slog has begun is directly correlating with a shorter amount of time actually expiring for the duration of the book. So the pace of the book has definitely slowed down. So this is likely where people lump, or why people lump in book 7, 8, and 9, and 10 into the slog. Remember, we were sort of like taken aback. Like, people think book 7 is part of the slog. All the, like, Samael fight and Shadow Logoth and Matt and Ibudar.
Cool,
and I think it is. There is cool stuff, but I like, as we just showed, like the pace. I mean, there's even fewer days that transpire in that book than in Crossroads of Twilight.
Well,
yeah, but there's shit happening. So that's
yes.
okay.
Yes, that's the differentiator. Exactly. That's the point I'm making, right? So like the pacing, and like who was it? Chris that was saying like you need one or the other. So at least if there's interesting stuff happening, the pace of the book is okay. It doesn't have to change, or at least have some like significant character growth, or just something to latch onto to feel like something is progressing. Yeah. Okay. So then, apart from the pace, there is the enjoyment of the actual content, which is what we're talking about here. An awesome sword fight wouldn't move the pace along much, but it is much more fun to read about than the power dynamic between 2 inconsequential Aes Sedai and Kyrian while observing the countless wall hangings and tile patterns that we had in the beginning of this book, right? Like that is literally what happened. Now, I have come into this book and, in fact, this entire reread and podcast with the express intention, stated quite explicitly many times over, to find something in the non-action chapters to enjoy. We use the shorthand of, like getting into the Daistai Mar, but to me at least, that is not limited to the actual game of houses played out in Kyrian, but to all the political maneuverings, and in fact, anything that is not the action my teenage brain was craving, right? Like, that's what I was really setting out to do here. So maybe that's where I'm rubbing up against everyone else, because I'm like I just told you before we started recording, I did a lot of research for these chapters because I am trying to tease those little bits of gold out of the perceived morass of mud and quagmire of non-movement. where I seem to veer away from the popular opinion from both our listeners and my cohorts on the podcast is that I am finding things to enjoy in these chapters. Except for the sea folk, never the sea folk. But at least that's pretty fucking limited, right? So give me Bashir, give me Rodel Ituralde, Loyal and Carlden, an attempt on Dobrain's life, etc. any day of the week. Even Fail and the Shido and the POV from Elenia Sarand in today's episode I found highly enjoyable. That's me, and I won't try to, as Dan put it earlier, gaslight you into thinking it's more enjoyable than you thought. If you're not enjoying it, obviously you're not obligated to. I still think it may have something to do with how I was ingesting these chapters as well. On holiday, blasting through them at a pretty rapid pace. Like I read the whole book in like 2 weeks, so I was never having to like sit in it for like weeks until we can talk about it, or wait for the book, sitting on like on these plot points for a long time. I just breezed through them and actually legitimately enjoyed them. In saying that, I can understand why other people wouldn't. And that is all that I will say about the Slog and my opinion of it.
In this episode, is that all you're going to say? Or for the rest of the podcast?
I can't even say just this episode because I know it's going to come up again later.
No. Moritz's talking about the Slog is going to be our own personal Slog.
It's probably a Slog for the listeners as well. Do you guys remember when we started this book, I said, good news, the Slog is dead, and bad news, you'll probably disagree with me? Exactly that is playing out.
Moritz is a seer. Okay. The Oracle has spoken.
Let's switch to something more pleasant. I'm sorry, I just rattled off a bunch of notes that I'd made there. Did you guys want to say anything? Do you agree, disagree? Can we move on with our lives?
I have had my moment, my flow last time around, a month ago. I feel like a new man.
Okay, good. Great.
I feel like Juliette Lewis on that bridge while after she's married, natural born killer. Yes, that's me. New man on the bridge.
Nice.
I love that scene, by the way. My candidacy as official fence sitter until I draw my own conclusion in, say, book 12. I'll get back to you on this.
Okay. I mean, look, we're gonna be reading about all the ratchet, and we're gonna get to Memory of Light, and it's just gonna be wall-to-wall action, the final battle, like the culmination of massive storylines, and we're gonna look back at this Andoran politics and say that was literally the worst thing Robert Jordan has ever written, right? Like when you get all the payoff and stuff, all this setup is gonna seem incredibly dire. But for the time being, I'm still pretty happy with what I'm reading here.
I feel like we're going to look back at this and say, what was the point of all that shit?
Probably. Maybe, like Chris was saying, like knowing what happens with Elayne immediately after she takes the throne makes it even worse. Mm-hmm. I've conveniently forgotten all the stuff that happens immediately after this. So maybe when that happens, and with Chris having highlighted it here, I will go, what the fuck was the actual point of reading all of it?
Mm-hmm.
But time will tell.
Moritz, perhaps you should reconsider. I have an open spot next to me on this fence.
On the fence?
If you wish to come and sit here for a while,
it's
I wouldn't mind the company.
I'm all in.
You're committed
all
now.
In, no slog.
It's too late.
I'm pot committed. All right, let's switch to something a bit more lighthearted, like a voice message from Marlene.
Hello, blood and ashes. Beneath my roof, there's water and shade for you. Your podcast is always welcome under my roof. In fact, I usually listen to your podcasts twice. You've had so many good episodes lately and so many good guest comments that I haven't had anything to add. But I just have to say that I agree with Mo that the Slog is not as bad as we anticipated. And also, as I've been reading ahead, I have to say that the true Slog is Elayne's quest for the throne. Please, God, no more politics. And I also want to say I have to agree with the Aes Sedai with Perrin in that Massima needs to be put down like a dog. Come on, we can all agree on that, right? And Fail's great virtue is when she takes care of that business. All right, Just wanted to thank you again for your wonderful podcast. Looking forward to the next one. Ciao. May you always find water and shade.
I think that we're in for a journey still. Divisiveness and opinions and feelings.
Marlene seemed to both agree and disagree with me.
Yeah.
Like, she also said, Slog's not so bad, but man, the politics. And I guess the distinction she's making, like, up until now, she hasn't felt the Slog is so bad, but the politics is really bad.
You know what that sounds like to me, being just out of an American election and going straight into an Australian one? It sounds like political talk just before the voters swayed into the other side of the camp. So it went like, yeah, they did this nice thing, and went on Florida holiday. The weather was warm. It was nice.
I'll count Marlene's as a vote for Michael's.
I believe
Thanks,
she
Marlene.
belongs on the fence with me. You're welcome here, Roof Mistress.
I did not remember that Fail had anything to do with Massima's death, and I quickly went and looked it up, and Fail and a bunch of Two Rivers bowmen make
Makes him
Massima
disappear.
die.
They make him die.
I was going to say make him bleed, but he dies. They get him.
I forgot about that. Sweet. I'm glad to know that there's a happy ending, at least.
Yeah. Okay, then some other regular listener contributions from Jordan. He goes, here is a little listener feedback for an episode. If you're still doing those this far in the future, Jordan is still busy catching up from older episodes. Absolutely loving the podcast. The tone you guys set is so welcoming and enjoyable. I binged through the first 3 books with you, and now I'm pacing my work on Soundscape of Time with your episodes so I can get fresh perspectives and take notes of certain sounds and ambiences, etc. that I might need to include that I might have missed. Now, knowing you guys, this won't be the case, but if you're ever on an episode of Book 10 and want to have a fun hypothetical conversation, here goes. Oh, and by the way, I never knew the Slog existed until well after I was done with the books. Interesting. So I'm very excited to hear your thoughts. I'm a big Lord of the Rings fan, and the slow chapters like House of Tom Bombadil and Treebeard are my favorites, so maybe that's on brand. Anyway, fun hypothetical. If the creator weaves new souls into the pattern when it's needed, and not every soul has just been there from the beginning constantly reincarnating, which of the main cast would you say could potentially be on their first turn of the wheel? Jordan's asked me to keep his answer until you guys have given your answers.
Do I have to answer like right now, or can I think about this?
You can think about it. I'll give my answer first. My answer is Nynaeve. She still has like loads to learn. She's still reacting to some of the events and situations of her life that shape the way that she interacts with everyone else. And the word like immature often comes to mind, like just the way that like she just seems like a young soul, the way that she is reacting to the world. So if there had to be one of the main cast that I thought would be a first timer soul, it could be Nynaeve.
It's definitely not Egwene. She's an old soul.
Yes. Absorbs those wise one wisdoms and manners like really quickly, like just hears it and goes, oh yes, of course, and then just like becomes it, like takes charge of the Aes Sedai and stuff.
I don't know if Fail qualifies as main cast, but I'd say Fail as well.
Yes. Yeah.
It's very loose with just throwing names there. You clearly haven't given this a lot of thought.
No, I was just informed of it literally 60 seconds ago.
Phil, any guesses for you?
Oh, Milli Skane for sure.
Main cast Milli Skane? Okay.
Made cast by the creator to create chaos and does it effectively. Fresh and
Main
new.
cast. The scope is now broadened. Anyone that we've read about is now allowed to.
I guess she's
It's
front
about
of
the
mind because
world.
she features here. She is a recurring character. I'll give Willie that.
She's a character in her own right. I mean, she deserves her own book line after this.
Also, Joe, remember who this is coming from, right? A fucking self-confessed dark
Yeah.
So
I'm well aware.
Oh, yeah, of course. Okay. All right. So Jordan said that I would say that Perrin is the one that makes the most sense, and he has the most has the most poetry to it. Perrin's careful deliberation throughout the series, and yet how far he comes by the very end is quite the journey. I really like to think that this is his first time through. I could also argue for Egwene, interesting, as a runner-up because of how eager she is to learn about everything. I'm with you on that one, Joe. Anyways, just for fun, all the best, and thanks so much for everything. Thanks,
You're
Jordan.
welcome.
That was fun. Next up, we have Gary from Florida who says, "Hi guys, I'm relatively new to the Watt saga and was only made aware of the story when the TV show first aired a few years ago. I've since listened to the audiobooks twice and have been looking around for some good discussion about the series, as I've been unable to get my wife, an avid reader, interested in the books. She prefers the unfinished Dragon saga. I came across your podcast a few weeks ago and have enjoyed it immensely. I am currently on episode 88 and it has been great fun. But I have a small bone to pick with you all, in particular the Prince of Pedantry, Moritz, and it involves the weather. The weather and its unnatural presentation has been a point of emphasis, at least to me, ever since the wind washed down from the mountain onto Rand, Tam, and Bella as they walked along the quarry road back in Book 1, Chapter 1. Since the very beginning, the persistence of winter and the negative effects of the spring planting season and its inevitable knock-on effects to crops and the food supply was clearly the work of the Dark One. As the story went on, we saw how winter gave way to an unusually hot, stifling summer, exacerbating the situation with food, water, and travel, which inevitably led to needing the Bowl of the Winds to try and fix things. The weather was and has been a huge factor throughout the series. It is a big player. It is as big a player as any Darkfriend or Forsaken in the lead up to the last battle, and has been a major weapon for the Shadow. I feel like you should have placed more emphasis on the weather in your analysis, especially since it shaped some of the pivotal actions of our protagonist. Other pods have ignored the weather also, but I would never have expected it from you, Mo. Smiley face. Keep up the great work. I look forward to following you all into the pit of doom.
I agree with you. It is all Moritz's fault. Really dropped the ball there.
What a difference a day makes.
Firstly, thanks, Gary. I mean, quite right. Look, I feel like we have actually said a couple times on the show that I previously completely ignored the whole weather thing, and that it's only on this reread that I'm paying more attention to it. I think a bit more in like how I just picture the scenes and stuff, and not as much the influence it has on the decisions and the movements of the characters and stuff. But I mean, it does have a huge influence, even on the movement of armies and stuff that we read about with Egwene, and then later with Perrin tracking these people. The fact that it is this unseasonably cold winter, affects all of their movement. So that is certainly true. I also, for a long time, sort of lamented the whole need for the Bowl of the Winds storyline. But when you place the emphasis that Gary has here on the weather, the Bowl of the Winds actually carries a bit more weight. And something else that I have said on this podcast about the Bowl of the Winds is like, oh God, never believed or could understand why we spent so much time, getting to know how they found it and all the quest for it and all that sort of stuff. But during the final battle, when the Dark One is actively using the weather as a weapon in the fight, and the Windfinders are I think they're in the valley of Thakandar, like they are near Shire Ghul, using the Bowl of the Winds to directly counteract the weather effects that the Dark One is using. It's a long setup for an interesting weapon, but I guess the same could be said for like the dragons that Matt uses in his quest for finding out how to make gunpowder from Eludra and all that sort of stuff as well. So another interesting weapon you only realize at the end of the story. But yes, quite right, Gary. The weather has been a massive influence on events in the book so far.
That Bowl of the Wind storyline is only annoying, and we glossed over it because of the Windfinders. But you could have just
probably
written them out, the whole Seafolk thing, and the Aes Sedai use the Bowl of the Winds or any other Channeler, and then you're fine.
Storyline. I'm all about Matt just finding it and him figuring it out, and not having any Windfinders involved at all. In fact, they were stories of them surfaced as the Shawnshan arrived, as they fled the Shawnshan's coming, but they were so shaken out of their wits that they ran onto the land and then convulsed and never joined the party, never leveled up, no Zyda, no nothing.
Yeah. Painful. Anyway, Gary, when you eventually make it to this episode, thanks for your contribution. And I will certainly, after this reprimand, this rap on the knuckles, I will be calling out weather-related topics and themes whenever I spot them.
We should create a section, Weather Watch. Where is
Weather Watch
time right now?
Many new sections. Slog Watch, Weather Watch, callbacks, listener feedback.
We have no time to ever talk about the chapters.
This Wheel of Time business around the book and saying we're doing a deep dive is, I mean, after all these years, you've got to consider that we got to go deep, like real deep.
Luckily, I mean, we all have lives beyond this podcast, right? And luckily we've got the listeners writing in with this kind of stuff, and it is adding, so it's like an unforeseen bonus of doing the podcast that I never thought would happen, but like getting all the stuff from the listeners is gold. So keep it coming.
Well,
thanks,
did
Gary,
you expect
everyone.
to get anything from me and Jody? I mean,
No, don't be foolish. Jokes. No, of course I did, and I do. I also get things from our favorite Kiwi listener named Gerald. He says, emailing while I think of it, sitting in my car outside Mitre 10 after getting some things my wife won't think I need. Just listening to the podcast and you're talking about the Perrin/Elayne flirting in the woods. And it's just clicked in my head that these interactions are the culmination of that whole rubbish Perrin and Elayne storyline. Elayne storyline. All the previous interactions, the fight with Fail, where she says, I might just take him from you for fun, or whatever it is that she said, everything is leading up to, we need to pretend we are flirting so we can work together secretly. RJ, once again, running a multi-book storyline without you knowing it. You're right, this podcast can make these chapters more enjoyable. Now I'm looking forward to the bits we can drag out of the Elayne Under Siege chapters. I will do my best, Gerald. And he goes, oh, and let the boys know I'm happy to talk about cricket and the Champions Trophy anytime. No one remembers the Rugby World Cup anymore.
Oh,
Gerald sent this to us straight after we lost to them.
I mean, I'll give it to him. It's
nice.
It's kind of like a you know, when a thorn hits you on the ankle when you're in slumps at the beach. It's not nice, and you kick it off, and then you carry on, and then you remember you are in year 6, being World Cup champions in rugby. And then think about all those Kiwi Tears jerseys, jumpers still drying, hanging outside in the terrible weather down on the South Island.
Those tears will never dry. Right.
So I had thought on previous reads that Elayne was actually persisting with her chase of Perrin, you know, like she said she would, right? Because she says those words to Fail, and then she also acts very much in that way in the beginning, especially when Fail is around. But I'm becoming more convinced now that she's actually let that go. Perrin's own sense of smell corroborates that, and to his own surprise, she's just using the rumors now as cover for an actual exchange of information. So now, you know, like that gossip is out there, and now she's just using it. She doesn't smell, like Perrin says, she doesn't smell like a wolf, she-wolf hunting him anymore. You know, we know that she, you know, hooks up with Galad later. I think she is just being really, really smart. I think that thing that she said to Fail was probably just heat of the moment, because generally I think I like Elayne, and I don't think she is doing that whole Perrin chasing thing anymore. At least I respect her.
It's Perrin that was chasing her. He was flirting with her, basketing, and slept in a tent the first night his wife wasn't there. I mean, we've been across this.
I will not help perpetuate this false narrative. So I will continue with Gerald's next message. A new thought. As discussed, there are 11 male societies and only 1 female, the Maidens. As we know, the societies don't fight each other when clans battle. Correct me if my memory is bad. No, Gerald, I think you're right. So maybe the women got together and said, we'll never fight each other, and thus, one society. Women do mature faster than men, you know. Also, you could call the wise ones a type of society too, ? So maybe there are 2 female societies? Unofficially. I think there are far fewer wise ones than there are maidens.
Oh, no, but there's still a lot of wise ones, more than you would
There's
imagine.
a lot of them. We said a number last week. I think it's 4,500 around there.
That's pretty clever, Gerald, because like the wise ones will, like when the clans are in battle, wise ones from opposing sides will join together and have a chat about things, but the clan chiefs won't. So they are distinct from the clan chiefs in that regard. Yeah, okay. I'm going to go with that. Also, before I forget, I think Elayne is a great little name for the Elayne storyline. Anything to do with Elayne and Perrin will just be the Elayne.
That's actually good. I must applaud that.
The Elayne.
Elayne. Even better.
Okay, Gerald also says, are we able to suggest now that Moses was a channeler? The last Aes Sedai? Is Christianity or Judaism the new Aes Sedai religion, or should we leave theology out of the podcast? From Gerald the Agnostic.
The agnostic, just stirring the pot and then leaving.
Leaving, yes. Okay, let's move on then to a message from Jonna Pierce. Hi guys, I'm reaching out while listening to episode 97. You guys are talking about the genetic component of being able to channel. I have to believe that it's very genetic. If you look at the Sea Folk and the Aiel, you will find many sisters and mothers with daughters and other relatives that can channel. Also, you mentioned that there aren't a lot of adult women that can channel from the Two Rivers area, but I think that might be wrong. If you recall, there are two types of channelers. The Wilders like Nynaeve, who are born with the spark lit, and they will channel eventually no matter what. And then there are those like Egwene, who will only ever channel if they are taught. I think that the women in the Two Rivers are most likely like Egwene, who can be taught. The ones like Nynaeve die of channeling sickness before they can learn to control it, while most of the ones who can learn are never even tested. True. So we had said but there aren't a lot of
evidence
women.
is how many girls go to the tower from the Two Rivers, as it follows on in the book.
That could be habit of testing only young girls.
Yeah.
Because when Varen arrives in Camelin with Bode, Cawthon, and the girls from the Two Rivers, they haven't joined the Saladar Aes Sedai yet. So Varen and those Aes Sedai wouldn't have tested the older women. So maybe that's
But
why.
can't Aes Sedai sense that a woman can channel when they're next to them, when they get close? Like,
I get the sense that is with increasing regularity. Like if a woman can channel a lot, you can sense it like quite easily. But if they haven't been taught to channel, you know, like how Egwene and Elayne and those ladies seem to be like leveling up their channeling, like they get more and more powerful over time, more gradually than the men who get more powerful in like fits and starts and like huge jumps. So maybe when someone like Egwene, who has the potential to channel but has never channeled yet and therefore is at ground zero of growing her power, maybe it's harder and you have to actively check to find it.
yeah.
I mean, the Damane and Suldam perform specific tests and stuff on the young Shanchan women as well. It's not just walking around.
Yeah, maybe it's not a
pointing them
sense
out
that
willy-nilly.
you can sense if a woman can channel. You can sense she is a channeler just by standing next to her.
Yeah.
That she's used it. It's kind of like you can smell it on her, like now, like the one power.
There's a residue.
There's a residue, yeah, that she's used it.
Yes.
All right.
Yes.
I'll accept that.
Cool. I like that. Jonna continues, finishing listening to the episode, and you've gotten to the part about Roland. I knew there was a point at which he saved Fail and that there was a reason for her to be sad about him having to die when he faces Perrin. He does in fact save her from rape and is also also from freezing to death when she's being punished. It doesn't excuse his behavior for taking her at all or hurting her during her kidnapping, but makes it seem like if she had been taken by anyone else, she may not have survived the whole ordeal. He is paying attention to her, which is creepy, but also obviously necessary for her safety. And he's for certain not as bad as the guy who picked her up and was carrying her away, just because he didn't just rape her, which he could have done many times. Okay, so she's saying, I think his name was Nadric, was the 7-foot tall giant dude. So Roland could have done the same thing, but didn't. He did put his hands on her, but it was an effort to keep her warm from freezing and to keep her limbs from frostbite. That other dude would have gone further and left her to freeze for sure. Recalling my own previous reads, I'm wondering if the fact that this portion happens here, but not the actual rescue is in the and is in the next book, that makes me think that this is why it's considered sloggy. I think a roundabout way of saying what we said before, it's spread out over multiple books, and that's why it feels like a slog. It's not trudging through snow while Perrin whines about not having his wife with him. It's all the blasted Andoran politics and Elayne whining about goat's milk and weak tea. Having been pregnant myself twice and having terrible morning sickness that literally lasted all day, I can sympathize with her. We cannot control the hormones that cause the swings, and it can be frustrating. But damn girl, make sure you are being self-aware. Lol, I am still hoping it's more interesting to me this time since I'm older and I've actually started paying attention to real politics. One thing about the beginning of all these books that I think about often is that some of these early chapters, which don't seem to have much point for moving the story forward, actually serve for the purpose of explanations for people who may have picked up this book without realizing it's part of a series. Thinking about these chapters from the point of view of someone who's not read any of the previous books, then there's good info for catching someone's interest and helping them understand they are missing lots of information. All the best. Also, thanks again so much for this podcast and all the work you each put in. I know it's been said, but I'll say it too because it applies to me. Also, listening to and participating with your podcast has made this read so very enjoyable. It's an absolute pleasure, Jonna. We are having a good time doing it. I think I mean, that's being pretty charitable, saying that like the early chapters of every book is there for the purpose, at least in part, to show people that may have picked the book up in error that there is stuff that they still need to read. I mean, it says book 10 on the cover, and like, you know, but I think an element of what Jonna is saying is something that we have said before, that there is a lot of sort of like bringing the readers back up to speed, you know, like not just flying straight into the action, but sort of like setting the scene a little bit and just sort of reminding you with little touch points here and there of what the stage is that we are going to see.
Are you
this
still
book play
defending
out
that
on.
sloggy as prologue?
I am, yes,
Oh,
because that prologue wasn't sluggy for me. Anyway, as for Roland, yes, he's obviously a nicer person than Nadric, the would-be giant sexual assaulter. Joe, you made a comment about him in the last episode that you have total disdain for him and the other brotherless. So this is Roland and the other brotherless, because they didn't accept Rand as the Kara Khan. So screw them. That was your stance on the brotherless.
Simplistic, yes.
I think you said that. I think those were your words.
No, like, look, either you accept Rand or you go back to your societies. But
Or
they
screw you.
Or option 3. Like, no, there is no option 3, bro.
Yeah. No, look, I get it. I'm a little easier on the brotherless. I can quite easily see why some of them would reject Rand. And that is thanks to the awesome work that RJ himself did to help us understand the psyche of the Aiel, right? Like, Muradin gouged his own fucking eyes out when faced with the reality of the Aiel history. So yeah, the Aiel are going some Aiel are going to reject Rand as the Kara Khan. It's just a bridge too far for them, for a wetlander to come in and like rock them to their core. I'm not as hard on Roland for that reason. I find Roland to be the most grey, morally grey character for me, because there are definitely things he does that, you know, gives me a serotonin hit, you know, like I'm like, oh, yay, great. Thank God for Roland. But also all the other stuff we've said about him.
But also, fuck you, Roland.
I think what
Yes.
you just have to accept with Roland is that, you know, Richard it's got to take one for the team, and you've got to have, so every now and then you're going to have a notable red shirt in the mix of it, and he's like a notable red shirt, like that.
Okay.
That one dude, you hear his life story riding up on the whatever Sean Shan beast. What are they called? Raken, Toe Raken.
The Raken. Yeah.
Raken. Yeah. Anyway, one of those, and then next minute plummets down, and dies, and okay, cool story, Richard. It's Roland's Richard.
You mean, yeah, Roland just has a bit of personality to make
just a better
the
NPC
rescue and
than normal.
Yes.
One that's got a few dialogue
A faceless
options.
Aiel. Yeah. Look, Roland is also, he's acting according to the customs followed by the Aiel, right? What happens in white stays in white, right? So like the kidnapping of Fail was done under orders. He doesn't believe in taking wetlanders as Guy Shane, because they shouldn't be, but he was ordered to by apparently his clan chief, even though it's not really his clan. And you know what happens with Guy Shane does remain only in that time. Like what he said to Fail about, like, I understand that you have a husband, but you know, like what happens in white stays in white. But there are also little exceptions to these things, because
I know, man.
the Shido are not going to un-Guy Shane these people after a year and a day, right? So is Roland basically saying, I'm fine with you being a Guy Shane for the rest of your life.
I
will
think
just have my
I think
fun with
Roland
you."
has a lot of toe to all Aiel
Yes.
out there, and I think he needs to grow a backbone. And if he cannot grow a backbone, I know a guy that can hammer his backbone into the ground for him.
Through his head.
My final stance on him is I feel like he's being a good guy and nice to Fail when it suits him.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a condition on that. So my final stance on him is good riddance.
Yeah, it's everything that he decides is based on him. There's no.
The only thing that's going to make me feel sorry for him again is if Fail starts like actively stringing him along. Alejandra straight up tells her to do it. So if she does do that with him, then I might start veering in the other direction and starting to feel sorry for him again. Time will tell. Anyway, let's move ahead. Mick Halverson wrote in another message that goes like this. Hey Mo, this comment is a bit late, but when you guys were talking about the kings being smuggled out in carpets and Tuon being smuggled out of Ibudar in a wall hanging, reminded me of something. Robert Jordan was channeling Plutarch at this point. There's a story from Plutarch that when Julius Caesar invaded Alexandria, the city was held by Ptolemy, or whatever number, Cleopatra's brother, husband and rival for the throne of Egypt. Cleopatra wanted to meet Julius Caesar, so she got herself smuggled into the palace, rolled up in a carpet. Cheers, Mick.
Oh,
Ah.
that's all.
Oh, history.
I know.
Okay.
Rad.
Thanks, Mick.
Thanks, Mick. All right. Mr. Dependable, Ian Yellen writes in to say, as you talk about the Aes Sedai and what it takes to achieve the shawl, I find it interesting that to progress you must have power, but once you achieve it, if you belong in the blue, brown, white, or grey Arges, strength isn't really important. Intelligence and cunning are. It's in the other Arges where strength or the capability in the one power is important. The greens battle, shadow spawn, red capture men who can channel, and yellow's heal. Strength might not be that important to gain respect in their fields, but I think as soon as someone needs to be in charge and make decisions, it doesn't matter which Arja people are in. Yeah. The strength is the thing that determines that hierarchy immediately. Elayne's condition strikes me as odd, says Ian. She got pregnant shortly before Rand went to Farmadding. He was only in Farmadding for anywhere between a couple of weeks and a month, and then went and cleansed the source. So at the point of these chapters, Elayne has been pregnant for about a month, and she's acting or being treated like she has been pregnant for 6 months. Treated, definitely. I think that's part of her frustration, right? Like she maybe feels like she's not been pregnant that long. Maybe she's not even showing yet. Certainly we haven't read anything to indicate that she's even showing. So quite right, Ian, she could be only pregnant for a month. I don't know about you guys, but my partner with whom I have had 2 children was able to tell within days of falling pregnant that she was pregnant before she went to a doctor. She could feel it in her body immediately, almost immediately. So for Elayne to start showing effects of a pregnancy a month into it, I don't think is that weird at all.
No.
Ian also says Aviendha has completed one of the trials to become a wise one, the one with the rings that show her alternate realities like the ones novices go through to become accepted. The second trial will be the pillars, and in it she will see the potential futures for the Aiel. I think it was in reference to what Aviendha says to Elayne when they sense the cleansing and Elayne wants to go to Rand. Aviendha tells her in the last episode that the rings in Rhuidean show a woman all the vast number of possibilities in her future, which is far too much for any person to retain. So all you're left with is a vague sense of things that could happen. And she tells Elayne that if they go to Rand now, something bad will happen. Like something she retained from being in that ring Tarangril tells her that. I think when she goes to the column, she also sees the history to become a wise one. Time will tell. Ian says,
the wrong group of people.
Anyway, let's hope the chapters get better, and thank you all for making the slog better than it was. Pleasure, Ian. You know I'm fighting the good fight here, even if people can't deny that the slog exists. I hope at least that it is getting somewhat more palatable. Chris Green says, howdy fellas, I was getting a hearty laugh at the hogtie discussion. When you started discussing cowboys and kings of the cowboys, it brought to mind how the Seanchan are supposed to have the slow Texan drawl. This led me down a rabbit hole about the wild-ass animals that the Seanchan have. In Texas and other places, it's common for cowboys mounted on horseback to engage in something called calf roping. The practice entails riding up alongside a calf while on horseback. The cowboy will lasso the calf around its neck. Then as they ride alongside, they will literally jump off the horse and tackle the calf, quickly turn it on its back and hog-tie its feet. The feet are tied in the front, unlike the not safe for work images Jody found. Now, imagine Seanchan employing these techniques while riding Torm and trying to wrestle Grolm and Lopar to the ground. The imagery was hilarious. Anything to get through these chapters, LOL.
That is a good image to have. I'm sure that the survival rate for the Seanchan is not as good as cowboy survival rate doing this. The cowboys are clever going with calves. Trying to do it with
Grolm and Torm.
Take it a little bit further than that. You've got the Seanchan arena. It is packed to the rafters with people, almost like a little mini coliseum. And in the ring in the sand, there's a little box and you see like 5-6 guys hanging around. Are you ready? Are you ready? And then the commentator screams out, and the gates are open, and out jumps this grown frog with a rider on its back, and it's got to hold on for 8 seconds. And that's the rodeo, guys. That's
Are the other
rodeo.
Sean Chan in the ring
And
dressed in like clown
Don't get
outfits?
eaten when you fall off, because that's
Yes.
the part of the real risk in that.
You stay on or you die.
Yes. Okay, thanks for that, Chris. We've got to find the veins of gold in the midst of all this other stuff. Agreed. Corey Jackson writes in and says, I don't know how useful it is to respond to old episodes, as you likely have addressed these issues again later, if important. Anyway, just finished episode 52, some of my thoughts. Gateways, I never noticed that the background also rotated. I never visualized it in this way, so thanks. Yeah, I'm stoked with that one too. Lews Theron, I've always thought that he was really there, not a simple part of the madness manifesting itself, though I appreciated the thought experiment. I still do think he was real, but that doesn't mean he was suddenly sane. So when he was saying, kill them all, and almost making Rand break the seal that Taim had just given him, that was totally consistent with an insane Lews that had broken the world, still was mourning killing his wife and everyone he cared about, and just didn't give a flying fuck about what happened.
See, remember when we used to discuss cool stuff like breaking
I
the
know, I was
seals
going to
and
say,
had many
Corey,
rounds
we've come
in?
such a long
Not-
way
not
since
fucking
episode
politics
52.
in Andor.
So to remind Corey when he gets here, Lews Theron was always there, just not as a separate entity. Rand is Lews Theron. Lews Theron is Rand. Their memories are one and the same. Rand had just compartmentalized Lews's memories to cope with this phenomenon, likely a side effect of him channeling and going just a little bit mad. But yes, very much real. Just not anyone different. Still Rand. So Corey says, hopefully we'll get through another couple of episodes while on spring break this week. I hope you did, Corey, and I hope you have caught up. All right. Whew, guys, we did it. We have finally finished with our callbacks and listener contributions. So let's blast through previously on Blood and Ashes before we take on these very exciting and content-rich chapters. So without any further ado, previously on Blood and Ashes. Elayne rode a horse. Joke, she did do that, but also, in the Shadow Camp, Fail is almost raped by a giant Aiel named Nadric before Roland comes to her rescue. Galena continues to be awful, but is pleasingly worried when they realize it's been hours since Magdan snuck into Tharaba's tent to try and steal the Oath Rod. Another guy, Shane Aravine, arrives and deals with Galena, but tells Fail she's been summoned by Savannah. On the way to Savannah's tent, though, they see the naked and beaten bodies of Arella and Lucille, the Chuffiel that escaped a couple days earlier. Turns out Galena had found the knife that Fail was hiding and gave it to Savannah, and as punishment, Fail is to spend the night strapped naked to a table. That night, Roland comes to her aid again, bringing braziers to keep her warm and massaging her cramping muscles. We switch to Elayne, who is out meeting with minor houses, building support. They also sense the cleansing and decide not to go to Rand, despite their urge to do so, and return to Camelin via Gateway. Back in Camelin, Elayne deals with some minor issues, including meeting with Van Dien, Mirinil, Saritha, and Carrion, where Elayne needs to set them straight about running from the major channeling event, as well as why Van Dien should not be pressured into teaching Windfinders. Dyelin Miller also arrives to report he led a sortie out of one of the gates to let in some men Dyelin had said would pledge for Elayne, but Elayne reminds him they have not done so and reprimands him, then sets him to keep an eye on them until they know their intentions, and he skulks off. Saritha tries to remind Elayne that she owes him, but Elayne brushes it off and dismisses the Aes Sedai. Elayne and Avienda take a bath, but the quiet moment is interrupted by the Windfinders. Nesta Denrea's Two Moons has been killed, and the sea folk need to pick another mistress of the ships. Zyda needs to leave, and Elayne bargains with her to leave 9 Windfinders behind to help with supplying Camelin during the siege. Merilil is to accompany the Windfinders for a year and teach them. And that brings us to tonight's first chapter, which is chapter 13, called High Seats. Let's take a seat while Willie regales us with a chapter summary.
High seats. Do you know that saying about high seats?
I don't.
They grow low fruits. We'll get back to that.
Interesting.
Jody's
Is that a real
puzzled. He's
thing?
intrigued. I like it.
We both are.
Anyway,
Call back.
we're carrying on exactly where we left off with me a month ago. And I have
Yes.
since gone through, I've made breakthroughs of my own.
Personal growth.
So I've mourned, I've healed, I've moved on, and then I picked up the
Wonderful.
books again, and then it's right back where I was, exactly on the same trend of anger and frustration.
It was all for nothing.
It was a ruse. It was I tricked myself.
I'm so
anyway,
sorry, Will.
Elayne was, if we remember back exactly where I was, she was rudely awakened from bath time or disturbed by the sea folk, and they've now been shooed out the room, and she's decided that she's going to commence with having her bath. Should Elayne be riding horses while with child or with children?
She's only 1 month.
Just carefully.
It's okay.
Oh, you know.
Well, I can tell you one
If
thing.
they don't even want to serve her honey tea, she doesn't get mulled wine. But, yes, get on the death trap and ride it through the snow. That sounds appropriate.
She should not be, because Christina was pregnant with Andy and didn't know it yet and went horse riding and was sick for like 3 days afterwards. And that's how she found out she was pregnant.
Oh boy.
She couldn't get out of bed. She was like, something is very wrong.
We'll find out in these chapters how
Cody,
Elayne
I have
has
so
not
many
been
jokes about what you just told me.
Bring it on.
Let's save that for another episode.
Yeah, let's get on with it.
Yes. While she's heading back to the bath, Avienda we learned that Avienda has now figured out that in this, when Elayne decides that she's going back to the bath, she reprimands Birgitte for, it's not cool for anyone to disrupt the Queen's bath. And I kind of do feel that Elayne has a point.
Damn straight.
But the feeling of shame through the bond and how one shame makes the other one, blush. Avienda's figured now out. So she finds this very amusing to see how this interplay plays out between them. Now, Elayne gets back into a cold bath and does not channel it warm with her water in the bath.
One of my notes.
Yep.
Everyone's notes.
It's
What the
a
fuck,
cold
ladies?
bath. Yeah.
You remember you can do magic, right?
No, they dealt with the cold bath. That's like, Avienda just quite plainly at this point said, like, I don't need to again get in the water. I've just survived the water that little while back, and she's going to carry on with life. Asanda is assigned to get Elayne dressed now, because if you recall, we still got to deal with the Windfinders. They were just going to be moved to another meeting room, the small sitting room, if you remember. We now reminded that there's a small sitting room because there's a big sitting room coming. Anyway, Asanda is really slow. Like, all right, she's cock slow. Because she's scared of doing the job wrong. And you learn about the beads, the thread count, the pattern of the grey wool dress, the slithers of green. I mean, there's so much detail. It's a grey dress, as I said. No silks. Falks. I couldn't understand. Is it falx fur, like real fox fur, or is it folks, as in fake fur?
How was it spelled?
And it's over the air. I listen to these chapters. I can't, but if I read it, I'll just fall asleep.
I'm sure it'd be fox. I don't
Yes.
think they've got fake furs in Randland.
Hey, maybe
yet.
things changed. Anyway, the bankers and the merchants are playing dabbly games at the moment as part of the discussion, because they don't want to be seen. So they want politics to be there, and the battle that this is all about is about Andoran houses and power for the struggle for the throne for Elayne. So they just want to do business. So they've been acting very strange and meeting, playing double games. Part of the discussion that goes on in bath time. 20 minutes later, we're still on that topic. Birgitte arrives and says, right, great news, everyone. Bath time's over. Dyelin is back. And everyone's like, hooray. But news comes that Dyelin is not alone. She has brought not one, but 4 houses to take the knee for the king in the north. And that is just great excitement. And they have to start this whole dressing process over now, because now they have to play royalty roles. So his son is like, oh, yes, finally I can dress her properly in sapphires and jewels. And Avienda's clapping hands because she's also going to dress up in sapphires and jewels. And they're putting on a tea party.
She's not quite clapping hands.
You say that, but
Well, it's subtle.
inside.
Like
it's subtle. But
Elayne has to ask her to do it, and then Avienda very quickly agrees to. Like, she doesn't resist at all.
no,
And
she
Elayne-
looked at Elayne getting
Yeah.
dressed by Santa, because I mean it took 10 years to get the dress ready and on her, and she was like, oh, maybe I shouldn't. Probably a long ass discussion in her own head, because we were so lost in Elaine's thoughts and reading all those words that she thinks
Yeah.
about, that she's just stoked. She was like, come on, I'm waiting for you to just tell me, get into this green dress. I've got the perfect gems to go with it. Everything fits except for the brooches that they wear, which is, of course, channeling devices.
Mhm.
Now, they obviously traveling fast by the gateways, and they've now been informed, or Elayne has asked Brigitte to get him in the formal sitting room, because in the small sitting room we've got some other women waiting for a tea time party as well, and they need to get apartments ready and assigned for these lords and ladies, their high houses, their very high seats that they are. Right. We've mentioned Avienda's wearing the silks. She's super stoked about the task of wearing silks. Oh, bitches are going to slay. They're all dressed up. That's my notes. They're ready. To brooches, the works. Discussion about midday meals. It's there. You should have eaten it. You were too busy bathing, but the plum stew and grains
More
and
mothering.
pork all boiled together into a congealed mass. Again, they're letting her ride horses, but they're making her eat that shit. Like, it's all just, it sounds like they're torturing her. Like, oh, you got pregnant. Let's see what we can do to you to make it not be so.
It's
Maybe because they all think it's
it's written
Malos kids.
specifically to convey that sense. Yes,
Mhm.
they are making it an unpleasant experience for Elayne.
Anyway, we move away from lunchtime talk, and and Elayne feels very triumphant in moving away from lunchtime talk, because she said if they think it's so good that they can eat it, and that sort of settled the conversation. No, it didn't. Nothing was settled. You wasted a bowl of food in a time of war. Not very good on you. Right. Doors open. The procession walks in. And right there and then, Elayne realizes, and Avienda, why Birgitta looked so confused. Because she is, because it's a room full of low-hanging fruit, the easiest to pick, the fruit, the children of the houses. Dyelin.
They're not the children of the houses. They are the high seats of their houses. They just happen to also be children.
They also happen to be the low-hanging fruits, the easiest to pick. Low opinions. I don't think that Dylan did well there. Dylan could have done a little bit better, maybe go for something more ambitious. But either which way, we are introduced.
Dylan doesn't go for those. Arymilla could.
Yes, yeah. I mean, there's strategic moves and all of this. I'm
Totally,
hoping you're gonna power me and bowl me over with the political maneuverings of these houses, and
I will be mentioning it. Yes.
I will go, yay, for House Palavar. And anyway, Palavar Mantia. Is this of the Mantias that Rand's mother was from?
Yes.
He is a squeaky boy with a squeaky
This boy
voice.
is likely Rand and Galad's cousin.
Yes. So I like Rand. I like Galad a bit. So I like this squeaky boy. He's got a very big task ahead of him, and he also, throughout conversation, appears to know more of the realities of life than some of the others in the room. In fact, he knows that you won't be moving horses through the snow at any time soon, which is already one better than the cavalry will advance at a trot. And
Jeffrey
Wyramont.
Arnold.
We've got some bad examples to go against. Lady Caitlin Haven. Caitlin is so good. Caitlin probably speaks like this.
She a
Caitlin,
baddie?
Caitlin knows that this place is, could have looked better. And I have got 3,000 men. Have I mentioned that I've got 3,000 men here? Like it was a 3,000 altogether. I can't remember. She mentioned it so many times. I stopped remembering.
She's 15.
15, still has baby fat cheeks. So 15 doesn't say much because it seems that that's the age they get married off anyway. So she's pretty much counts as grown up, but not quite there. Brand Lit Gillard, blue-eyed boy, also fresh and young, likes to use his eyes on Birgitta's breeches. And then Lord Conal Northern, who's a teenager, has a little bit of fluff on his upper lip, but I think Caitlin is the oldest of the lot, or is Conal?
This last boy I thought was Conal, I think, yeah.
But by a whisker. But being a boy, she's probably maturely the bigger,
more mature than him.
More mature than
probably.
him. But
she's described as being particularly naive, and her interaction with Avienda just now also shows that.
Yes. Obviously, throughout all of these introductions, we were introduced to that. Avienda's introduced this, talks about Birgitta and shooting of eyes out over distances, and a whole lot of stuff that is just not worth mentioning.
One of my notes is I had, well, I'm going to mention it anyway because it was funny to me. Like, Avienda says to Catelyn, who is 15, that she should learn the spear, because she's talking about swords. She should learn the spear, the knife, and the bow instead of the sword. She says, Birgitta Trehillian could shoot your eyes out at 200 paces with her bow, maybe 300. And she goes, the spear? And then, my eyes? She's all freaked out.
Scaring the little girl. Shut up.
Yeah.
I want to have a shout out to Lord Villain. That is Perival's great uncle,
something like
dad,
that.
Something.
His responsible adult.
He's a responsible adult has actually sent someone that he is, raised. So I'm like, he reminds me a bit of myself, Lord Villain. Did I say villain?
Villain.
Anyway, Elayne has some questions for Dyelin after all of this. It's like, firstly, did you bring with the nannies that's looking after the children? No. She thought they were good and well and able, and no one will even notice they're gone. It's like, did you kidnap them? Did you even let anyone know?
Kind of a little bit.
There's a lot of questions around a room full of children. Like, what is their mothers thinking of this?
Vil, like Dyelin, has been known to sort of be like quick to act. She's the one that imprisoned Elenia and Nyan, that we read about a lot in these coming chapters too. When they declared for the throne, Dyelin just came out and straight up arrested them and locked them up.
Yeah,
like on what authority?
Loose cannon.
She's just another noblewoman, yeah. So like, yeah, the thought of her kidnapping these kids, and she does kind of play it coy here as well. When Elayne is quizzing her, she's like playing it down. It's like, fuck it, like these kids are young, we'll grab them. They're ours. They're for us now.
I mean, these kids are so out of touch and so young that like Caitlin doesn't know who Gareth Bryn is.
Yeah, she's like, just wide-eyed.
Like, well, man. Anyway, Avienda, as I mentioned, or as you also refer to, scares her out of her socks with eye talk and arrow talk and all the rest. We've been across the armsmen, 3,000 armsmen that's added, but a very good thing about these, not high in numbers, but we're not talking footmen. Half of them are halberdier and crossbowmen, which is tremendously helpful in a siege. So you've got your walls all of a sudden lined, and your tools of weaponry
the halberds, they'd probably use like a pike or something, like maybe inside a gate in case it gets breached. Then you have to get past a row of pointy bladed sticks.
That helps. That helps.
Or even pushing guys off the wall with halberds
Can
to
throw
try and breach
tar
the
on
wall.
them. Anyway, Dyelin blows her own horn about how well she's done. I think she'll take anything for a win at this time, but not everyone's convinced. Birgitta is the one that lets rip the hardest. Birgitta and Dylan, not a lot of love between the two of them, as we find out in these chapters.
Mm-hmm.
Elayne then saddles Dylan as well with looking after these kids to make sure that and also that none of it comes back to her eventually when parents come knocking. Like, you're dealing with this. You are the making of this. And Birgitta, of course, just having a field day with that. Every now and then you'll find Avienda chirp in with that. Ooh, she's always on the sidelines, so ready to throw in a little bit of Maiden of the Spear humor into the mix there. And then that's where sort of the room is dismissed because the first clerk and first lady has arrived for their briefing session. And to put me out of my misery in summarizing bath time for the second time.
Yes.
This chapter I thought was more about like the high seats. I mean, it's named after the high seats, and like
it's high seats, low hanging.
So yeah, this is it, right? This is the machine gun fire of new names just coming at you, and you have to try and place them in this like hierarchy of houses and stuff.
I feel that Perival, without me doing any research, Mantia, there is that he plays a further. Like,
yes,
I feel the name was in there a lot.
And then one of the other lords is Pelavar. Pelavar is another house. And Perival, like, I mean, it's virtually the same word. So, like, RJ is doing us no favors here, right? Like, he's Ilorian, the names Arymilla and Elenia, they're all A's and Y's and E's and I's, you know, like, it's just, they all sound super, super similar. So it's really fucking hard to keep track of. So, yeah, we're in it now. We're in the direct line of fire of the machine gun of high seat names and political maneuverings. I said basically all my notes. Joe, did you have anything else you wanted to say there?
Fuck no. Let's move on. There's clerking to clerk.
Look at those clerk's notes.
Yeah, we got to find out what's in that folder.
What's in that binder? Yes. Let's find out in chapter 14 called "What Wise Ones Know." And speaking of wise, I think I'll give us a quick summary.
Oh, what a surprise!
Firstly, the chapter title, "What Wise Ones Know." It can't be too straightforward. So I thought maybe like could be the two things. One is the weave, the caressing the child, and the other one is what Monaelle says to Elayne about her experience of being a mother. It's like something that a wise woman would know. Anyway, let's see. Let's read on and find out. Okay, so the first mage, Reene Harfour, and the first clerk, Halwin Norry, have arrived to deliver their reports, and Avienda wards the room against eavesdropping. Mistress Harfour starts by naming the second librarian, a Master Hardner, as a spy for the Brown Arger. Apparently there are loads of them, but Reene Harfour, and that's spies in the palace, but Reene Harfour is sure that they'll get to the last of them soon. Elayne orders him watched and visibly vexes Avienda, who would rather immediately slit the throat of any confirmed spy. Counter-espionage does not sit well with her or the Aiel in general. No spies for the Black Tower have been found yet, but they're bracing for it. Another spy, John Skellett, a barber who reports to Nayan, and therefore at this point Arymilla, who is her captor in all but name, seems to be amenable to being bribed to turn coat again and spy for Elayne. Birgitta, Dyelin, and Norry are all shocked that Reene Harfour is talking directly to a spy, but she just pauses and lets them finish before continuing. She's kicking ass here. Like, she even refers to an enemy informant breaking his leg almost as if she had arranged for it. She says, the ground is always icy where a fire has been put out, which is super plausible since
a lot of fires.
They've been putting out Milli Skane fires quite frequently. Exactly. Yeah. So, like, Mistress Harfour is, like, super cunning and quite badass. When Dyelin implies that John Skelet could switch sides again, Reene gets a bit impatient and she says, Lady Naon would have him buried under the nearest snowdrift, my lady, as I made certain he is aware. She has never been patient, as I'm sure you are aware. In any case, the news we get from the camps is quite sparse, to say the least, and he might see a few things we would like to know. So, like, she's standing up to Dyelin saying, you should know that Naon would kill him and not pay him to spy on us again, pay him more money. Naon is too impatient. She'll kill him and leave him under a snowdrift. So Reene Harfour is, like, knowledgeable of the other houses and how they would behave as well. Elayne says, if Skelet can tell us which camp Arymilla, Elenia, and Naon will be in and when, I'll give him gold from my own hand. So, like, Elayne is backing Reene. She's saying, okay, cool, Mistress Harfour, make it happen. And she tells her as much, make it happen. Next, it's Norry's turn, and talk turns to supply trains from Ilian and Tyr. Elayne breaks the news that they're losing half their windfinders to make gateways for the supplies, but Norry does some quick calculations and says they'll make it work. Next report, 9 arsons in the last 24 hours. It seems evident that some hand is directing the arsons, and yes, we know that is Milli Skane. Norry has noticed that the fires seem to be set in such locations that would lure the water wagons furthest away from the warehouses storing food, which he believes are the real target. So Birgitte offers to map the warehouses out and send extra guard patrols to the areas furthest away from those warehouses in an attempt to prevent a fire or even catch and interrogate an arsonist. This is all good shit to me, right? I like reading this because it sets the tone for me. I can imagine what it's like on the streets of Camelin at night with guards walking around keeping their eyes peeled for people that look shady, like they could start fires somewhere. Next report. Elenia Sarand and Nayan Aron have borrowed huge sums of money from different banks against their estates. The banks don't seem to know that they have triple dipped, so they've borrowed against their estates from multiple different banks. But Norry knows this, right? So, like, these big, like, money movers who probably have their own networks of spies and stuff, like, they don't even know that, you know, they've been asking all of them, but Norry does. This clerk over here back in Camelin. Those sums could buy a lot of swords, and both Dyelin and Birgitte give off "I told you so" vibes. Elayne reminds them that a mercenary that betrays the city gate, like what they are being asked to do now, or like what they are guarding now, would never find work again. They could never be trusted. But isn't that exactly what happens? Like, one of the gates is breached because I think the mercenaries are bought.
And also, if your mercenaries are dark friends, they don't give a shit.
So, reputation means nothing.
That would increase their reputation.
Totally.
Amongst dark friends.
I carry the philosophy that mercenaries should be bought just to go into a messy battle. They're kind of like, you know, don't buy them to protect your assets. And I mean,
they wouldn't say no to the work. It's easier work.
Yeah, they wouldn't say no to the work, but mercenaries are sellswords. They'll sell themselves over and over again.
This is what Dyelin and Birgitte have been saying this whole time, and that's why they are giving "I told you so" vibes to Elayne. Said, just make it happen, find the men, hire the mercenaries. We need to stock up on guards. So they are saying, yeah, see, now the other guys have got a shit ton of money. They're going to buy this fucking mercenaries, and they're going to take one of the gates. And I think that is almost exactly what happens. So Elayne orders Birgitte to have the mercenary companies watched, but she is undermanned as well. All Birgitte can do is continually reassign the mercenary companies different duties to keep them guessing and unable to plan for anything reliably. Elayne asks Norry if it's likely the banks are talking to each other, and he doesn't think so. She thinks the banks could prefer Arymilla on the throne if they lent her and her allies money they'd like to see returned. And Birgitte already knows this is another angle of attack that she'll have to guard against. So if the banks realize everyone has loaned Arymilla a bunch of money, they might be more in favor of Arymilla actually achieving the throne so that they have more guarantee of getting their money back. So that means the banks themselves could arrange assassinations on Elayne, because with Elayne out of the picture, Arymilla is more likely to become queen and they're more likely to get their money back. And before Elayne can even say this to Birgitte, Birgitte's sort of nodding, going, yep, I know, more assassins I need to watch out for. As for moving the mercenary companies around to sort of like, they're not always at the same gate, you know, like that's a good idea. But I think that also only kind of works up to a point, because they could say, like, send messages between Arymilla and the mercenaries to say, okay, when we are eventually assigned to gate X, we attack. That's when it goes down. And when we get our orders, we'll send word to you and we do the 2-prong attack from either side. And then, you know, so it would only maybe delay an inevitable
See,
attack.
I'd love the way that you're starting to think like a dark friend. How can you get past these things? How can you breach the walls? Because there's always a way. And I mean, Milli Skane.
Well, this is the stuff I'm enjoying. All this like tactics and strategizing and stuff. This is good stuff. Norry and Mistress Harfour are dismissed, and as soon as they're outside the ward for eavesdropping, Avienda says that someone had tried to listen in. They speculate about who it could be, but Brigitte tells them they need to wrap up their conversation so nobody thinks they are discussing anything other than what Mistress Harfour and Master Norry had reported. So Brigitte quickly pulls out a map to start discussing some of the high-level movements in Andor. I thought it was funny, Brigitte always has the map on her. Like, it's always folded in her pocket, unless she's sleeping, in which case it's under her pillow. It's like it's always with her. Okay, so the Borderland army is moving slowly toward Camelin. At this rate, they'd be there in a month, but as agreed with Elayne, they would continue south to Mirundi, where they hope to find Rand, because that's where Elayne told them Rand is. So some traveling kinswomen say that the villagers out there to the north think that the Borderlanders may have camped for winter. And this is frustrating to Elayne, if true, who needs the news of the approaching Borderland army to spread like wildfire so she can use that to her advantage by successfully avoiding war, quote unquote, with them, right? So she's set them up to move south to Mirundi so that people can get alarmed by this Borderlander army, so that she can go to the Borderlander army and pretend to have peace talks and have them pass peacefully. And now she's avoided this massive crisis and everyone thinks she's a great leader and she becomes queen. Like, it just counts towards her and more houses would follow her. So she needs the army to move, and when she hears news that they might be camping for the winter, that's frustrating to her. They're all getting a little bit nervous with the Borderland armies. Biles, Aiel, Bashir's Legion of the Dragon, and the Black Tower, all in close proximity to Camelin itself. They're all sort of to the north and the west of Camelin, right? Like these massive destructive forces that are not necessarily 100% aligned. So peace is teetering on a knife's edge. Abel, Luan, and Elorian are nowhere to be found. So Luan is reports of him appearing everywhere. Abel and Elorian, they disappear completely. No one knows where they are at all. Arathel, Aemlyn, and Pelivar crossed from Mirundi into Andor 5 days ago. So those are the nobles that met the Saladar army, spoke to them for a while. So these guys, coming from the south, Arathel, Aemlyn, and Pelivar, nobody knows who they're aligned with. Elorian and Luan and Abel, who have disappeared, and there's word of them being everywhere at the same time, are also not 100% aligned with Trakand. Elorian especially, she hates House Trakand. She was the first one to claim for Morghast when Morghast when she put her claim, she backed Morghast immediately. But during the Gabriel time, when Ravin was sort of compelling Morghast, Morghast had her flogged. And she has turned her back on House Trakand completely. So a lot of these people have more of like a Dyelin flavor to them. So these 6 major houses, 3 coming from the south in Mirundi, and the other 3 being MIA, while Arymilla gathers Nyan and Elenia and some of the other smaller houses together. They are neutral so far. They will eventually form actually up a camp, the 6 of them, and stay neutral in the whole siege thing. And after the attack is foiled, they join Elayne. And Dyelin convinces them to go for Elayne. Bottom line, Morghast has made it really hard for Elayne while under Ravin's compulsion. So, this would have Elayne is the daughter heir of the previous queen that was much loved up until the point that she fucking ran the country into the ground under Ravin's control. So that's why we get all this politics. And maybe that's another reason why we push back on this whole succession plotline, because it should just be plain, right? Elayne is still the daughter heir. Why is she not just the queen? Why do we have to deal with Arymilla and all those others? They end up with basically saying they have to hope for the best and plan for the worst with all these armies. Then Saigon, a guardswoman, announces the arrival of the wise one Monaelle and Sumeko, the powerful healer from the kin. As they walk in, Monaelle gives Avienda a hard look, and Elayne realizes it's because of Avienda's attire. I love Elayne sticking up for Avienda when Monaelle is scrutinizing Avienda's dress. Elayne notices immediately and says it was as a favor to Elayne. And then after thinking a bit, Monaelle agrees that first sisters should do each other favors and that Avienda needs to learn to live in 2 worlds. So this is probably a good idea. This makes sense. And I wonder if this is the thing that gives Avienda the excuse, from now on, she's a dress girl. She's going to get all the fancy dresses and stuff. Because a wise one said, yeah, this is probably okay. Cool, gotcha. Dresses for me from here on out.
Isn't there something interesting she says there as well? Because you tie us
Yes.
to basically insinuating that because you also tied to Rand, like you
Yes.
bind us to them.
Mm-hmm.
So okay, you're gonna have to be like them a little bit,
Mm-hmm.
dress up.
Inevitably. Yeah. Monaelle is here to check in on Elayne's pregnancy and has brought Sumeko to learn the special Aiel weave that they use to do so. Monaelle forms the weave, and when Elayne asks if it's like delving, Sumeko responds absentmindedly with, "Don't be silly, girl." And Sumeko is getting like more and more bold by the day, calling Elayne girl, and I think she's being set up to take over the leadership of the kin after Rianne Corley's death. So Sumeko is emerging as like a character that can take charge. She becomes a prominent healer with the rest of the kin after the siege of Camelin, as well as during the last battle, and she plans to eventually return to the White Tower and try for the Yellow Arger. She already knows that she can do more complex and more extensive healing than what Nynaeve is even capable of. So she's, teaching the wise ones and Nynaeve. They discuss the nature of the weave called caressing the child. So when Elayne asks if her channeling would hurt the unborn child, she's told no. Also, she has 2 babies, so the secret is out. As Sumeko takes a turn copying Monaelle's weave, Monaelle also tells Elayne that she won't really be having morning sickness, but she will have difficulty channeling. Like the one power will just slip away from her at times, which could come into play later, maybe like when she's to be kidnapped or during the escape of the Black Arger sisters. But remember, like, because of Elayne, I'm sure RJ will remind us in the moment as well, that it's because of her pregnancy that she might fail to channel when she needs to. Elayne will also become moody, and the father of the child should keep his distance. Sumeko audibly mutters about Mello being the father, so the rumor is well and truly out there now, which is part of Elaine's plan, however much I hate it. Apparently, it's Elaine's ability to channel that saves her from morning sickness. Avienda is called forward to practice the weave as well when Sumeko is done. But before she can start, the channelers all release the power and stare to the west, which to a non-channeler would look like they're just staring directly at a wood-paneled wall. The cleansing has ended. So we're at the end of that one day that started on the minor noble's estate, right? This is, I think, 5 chapters is one day, is the length of that one chapter of Rand. Okay, so this second cleansing or second sensing of the cleansing, now finished, is even more useful to me than the first one. It reminds me of how little time has passed in the last couple of chapters, 5 chapters, one day in Camelin. Elayne is busy and somewhat compromised by her pregnancy, is the basic like highlights that I'm getting from these chapters, emotionally and in her ability to channel. So she is compromised on multiple fronts. Thanks to the water bond, Elayne and Avienda know that Rand is alive after the event, whatever it was, which would be such a great relief for them. Thanks, Bond. So Alana, Elayne, and Avienda are the only 3 channelers not at Shadow Logoth that would know Rand is directly involved and situated at the massive channeling event that they can all feel. Maybe Perrin mentioned it to Anura and the wise ones present on the ridge over Malden when they sensed it, because he saw the swirling colors and he sort of said, "Don't worry, it's Rand and he's fine." But they wouldn't really know what was going on or like exactly where they were, like Avienda, Alana, and Elayne would. Sumeko says, "I think something very wonderful or very terrible has happened today." And Elayne says, "Wonderful, because Rand is alive after it's done." Right? So her bet is, something great. Either he escaped death, which is also great, or he did achieve something great. Their staring is interrupted by Casil, another guardswoman, knocking on the door and entering to announce that the Windfinders are in a tizzy because one of their apprentices has disappeared. Apparently, another guardswoman has also seen Merilil and a cloaked and hooded woman with tattoos on her hands take 2 horses and a pack mule. News about Merilil has not spread yet, but it is only a matter of time. Elayne immediately but politely dismisses Monaelle by inviting her to dinner that night and starts issuing orders for the gates to check for Merilil and for the kinswoman to search the city for her. All in a day's work for Elayne. And what a day. That's the end of that chapter.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Villy's back. You have a nice nap.
No, I didn't nap. I mean, it's just kind of like reliving the nightmare. Yeah.
I dig that shit. I had all my notes and points obviously just interspersed in
Norry's summary and updates, and helpful. Like the first clip
and Reene,
made is great. You learn a lot from them. they're in control, they're good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank God Elayne is surrounded by all these super competent people.
Super competent.
Because if not, she'd be fucked long ago.
She is getting increasingly incompetent. Or reckless,
but is
or
that the
something.
Pregnancy affecting her mind?
We don't know.
I think maybe that's why the pregnancy is written in here to kind of like...
To allow for that.
To allow her to make some silly decisions and have other people come to the rescue so that they can shine in these chapters.
I think we've speculated as much before. All right. So, Willie, I'm guessing you've got nothing you want to add to that chapter. Anything from you, Joe?
It's absolutely like nothing. I don't even have a joke.
Like this just occurred to me to juxtapose this Elayne with the Elayne when she was traveling with Nynaeve, and how we were and Moritz, you were specifically saying like loving Elayne, being like a detective and finding this all out. Like she was super intelligent, like just going above and beyond what we thought of her, and now she's back to Ninny Elayne.
I wouldn't say back to. I think Elayne was pretty sharp.
No, our perception of her, like we never considered, we had forgotten about her sharp mind, and then read about it and was like, oh shit, she's sharper than I remember, and now we're back to thinking, maybe not as sharp as we remember, but circumstances, blah blah blah.
I think it's probably implied that it is the pregnancy, right?
Yeah.
Monaelle says as much. The father should steer clear. Stay away.
That's
you will be moody.
Plan.
Yes. All right, then let's forge ahead to chapter 15 called Gathering Darkness. Let's gather around Jody for a recap.
A recap of darkness.
I like that you refer to let's gather around Jody, the gathering darkness, because you guys are gathering the feeling and the belief that you're falling into it. It's going to get you guys. The slug is going to be the thing that wins you over.
Yeah, if anything pushes us over to the dark side, it's these chapters. All right,
All right,
I'm just going to move my my notes around so I can read better.
That's a good idea.
Where am I going? All right, I'll move the video over there, and I'll move the notes over here. All right, excellent. Yes. Strap in. We are with Elenia Sarand, and she is a plotty girl. She's part of Arymilla Marn's siege of Camelin against her will, sort of. We've touched on this now in this last chapter. She was rescued, in air quotes, by Arymilla while she was being transported to Erangel with Nayan, Arawn. There was a mention of that when she was rescued. And we were just talking about it now. There was Dyelin who orchestrated their capture in the first place. And she was basically strong-armed into supporting Arymilla's claim for the throne. Like, I rescued you, now you support me, end of story. Sign this paper saying officially that you do. But she has her own ambitions. House Sarand is a little bit of history, led by her husband Jared. It's like, Jared? Okay. And did not support Morghase's claim and does not support Arymilla's claim. They support no one's claim ever, only their own. Arymilla is keeping them apart. So there's all these different camps, and even the camps themselves are massive. So she's keeping the husband and wife apart to avoid plotting. Like, it's a good move. But so many names. Elenia suspects her husband is like ready to snap and cut their way out of here. But she's going to do some plotting while she waits for all of that. She's riding, at the moment in this scene, riding around the siege camp with her epically loyal maid, Janny, who will demonstrate that loyalty later on. And her last 4 remaining armsmen, sporting the 2 golden boars of her house on their cloaks. Remember the 2 golden boars. She's smiling at randos and waving at soldiers in some sort of like vapid attempt to ingratiate herself with a peasant class. Something she knows that Arymilla doesn't do, and when it comes time to stab Arymilla in the back and take over the army and like put herself forward, she'll need these soldiers to remember her and know her and like her. So even though it's boost cold, she's riding around, sharing little nods and waves with the lowborn. She's just really douching it up.
Did I mention it? Is it nighttime?
No, it's daytime.
No,
because later on they talk about where they're going to sleep tonight.
All right.
And that's only after all of this. Because Arymilla is no, and I quote, pea-brained ninny, and is constantly messing with Elenia, trying to keep her unbalanced, like main tactic being moving her from tent to tent, from camp to camp, so on a whim, so she can't settle with anything. She doesn't have her own maid sometimes. Once she had to sleep in a soldier's tent, they kicked the soldier out, like really keeping her off balance. But with this point of view, we see that it's not really working because she is plotting. She finds time to plot. She's a noble. It's in their blood.
And Elenia thinks of Arymilla that she is an idiot, right? Like, that the thing that got her to sleep in the soldier's tent was because of some perceived slight. Well, actually, it was a slight, but not one that she thought Arymilla would get. Like, she doesn't catch on to the fact that Arymilla is savvy to her ways, and she just has this super low opinion of her.
Like, Arymilla's not in her position right now because she is a pea-brained ninny.
No, exactly.
Exactly. So her thoughts land on Elayne for a second, obviously. She doesn't think too much of her either. And I know we just dissed Elayne, but she's our girl. We're allowed to say that shit about Elayne if we want. Yeah. She's not allowed to. She thinks of her as a young chit, pregnant by some guardsman and too dumb to see that like Dyelin is the real brains manipulating her behind the scenes. Well, Dyelin is the real brains. She's right about one thing. Yeah. Without Dyelin, there wouldn't be those 4 children sitting in one of her tea rooms right now. So
maybe not.
So plotting, back to the plotting. Coming towards her, she sees her co-rescuee, Nayan Aron, with her guardsman wearing the 3 silver keys of House Aron. I always say Arwin when I read this word, but it's Aron. She wants to plot with this one, but not here out in the open, where everyone can see and then carry tales to Arymilla, but it's too late because Nayan has now seen her and just spurs her horse forward in a gallop towards her. Elenia, how's it going? Like, shut up, woman. Yeah. So she thinks, well, she must have something really important to say to Elenia, so I must hear it. So Elenia kind of like tells her retinue to stay behind, her 4 remaining armsmen, and spurs her own horse, or to meet Nayan halfway at least. Turns out Nayan just wants to know if Elenia knows where they're going to sleep tonight, because Arymilla's been using the same trick on her as well, the same tactic of keeping her off balance. Elenia's like, I don't know, what the fuck? But Nayan does think that they should talk about some more serious stuff. She knows both of them want out of here ASAP, and they should be plotting more. Here, in the middle of the camp, in broad daylight. Let's do some plotting. Turns out, like I mentioned earlier, both of them signed a pledge to support House Marn, and even if Arymilla let them leave, everyone now knows who their allegiance is to, so they would be considered traitors. But Nayan is still convinced that Elenia already has an escape plan in place, which she kind of does. We don't know the specifics of it quite yet, but we know she has one. And says if she's not included, she'll rat her out to Arymilla. But Elenia counters with a threat of her own. I had to go read this up a bit later. Jack Lunault, he's a Terrabona, will play cat's cradle with her again, and that scares the shit out of Nayan. It turns out that this Terrabona is a torturer who specializes in cord torture. He eventually joins Elayne and questions Arymilla when she gets, and they eventually get to, find the Black Aja, and he questions them when Elayne captures him. And it turns out he's a dark friend himself, and he's been playing both sides. It's a whole thing. We'll get
It's a whole thing.
It's a whole thing. I'm not going to go into that in this chapter. There's enough to go through. So in desperation, Nayan promises to pledge House Aron to Elenia if she takes her with her when she escapes. So Elenia retorts with another denial that she is totally not planning to escape, but like say, things change, you never know what the future holds. If it does and things change, then I promise I will take you with me, but only if you sign that letter pledging your house to mine. Capiche? Only then. So Nayan, of course, didn't think that she would have to agree to that right away. She hesitates. She's like umming and ahhing, and Elenia plays the old, oh, I'm running out of time, I gotta go now, and turns away, which of course works, and a desperate Nayan goes, like, oh, wait, okay, I agree, I'll do it. I'll get that letter to you like today, if possible. Yeah. So they part ways. She rides off, at least Elenia. Elenia is so ecstatic with the result of this encounter that she promises Janny some new dresses. There's lots of dresses in these chapters. Lots of dress talk. I'm like, go Janny. So Jenny knows that whenever her lady is in a good mood, she gets some new dresses and like top-notch shit. She doesn't get like the cheap stuff. So they have to go find Arymilla now to see where they are going to sleep for tonight. But on her way, she plots a little more. So she's thinking now about like, okay, so I got House Aron on my side. And maybe that will convince, I've got some names here, Corind Anshaw and Lur Baron to throw their support behind her too. And that would encourage other houses as well who hate Arymilla and Trakand even more, like Elorian, for the Ravine compulsion flogging. And if they all join her, then Aemlyn Karand, Arathel Renshaw, and Abel Pendar, Abel, he's back, might support her as well. And if all of them give her support, then Lewin Norwellen and Lord Pelevar, Colin himself will have to join her. So she can already see herself seated on the Lion Throne. I wrote it down and I thought Iron Throne. I said, don't say it. And I still fucking say it. On the Lion Throne. And she's now loving this plan is coming together. You could just picture a big cigar in her mouth and like B.A. Baracus driving through the lions in his big van.
A lot of things have to fall into place there for Elenia's plans to
She is counting all of her chickens before they've hatched.
Yeah.
She is. But hey, look, you got to have hope for the future, right? If you don't have a plan, how are you going to achieve it? So, all right.
True.
Go for
Aim high, miss high.
it. Exactly. But her reveries are rudely interrupted by Nassan Kieran, an old scory man who's the leader of House Kieran, who has developed a very unhealthy and sexually inappropriate fascination with Elenia. He is described as high seat of the most powerful single house in Andor and quite mad. He's literally a crazy old man. So he seems to think like Elenia is his wife or his betrothed in some way. And no matter how many times she has to remind him that she's married to Jared, he just doesn't get it. And she reminds him again. And he's all like, oh, shit, is that Jared bothering you? I'll duel him and take him down and murder him. And she's like, dude, like, and she has to like eventually play along just to go with his illusions. Sorry, not illusions. She plays along. She calms him down, saying, "Oh, she can never love a man with blood on his hands." And he's like, "Oh, I didn't realize that you were so sensitive. Okay, I won't kill Jared in your name." And blah blah blah. She's like, "All right, fine." All this time, this confrontation has been happening on horseback, right? And he's trying to get to her and like grab her thighs, and she's trying to fend him off. Classic old Jenny has been putting her horse in between the both of them, trying to keep Nassan from getting too close to her lady by pretending to be, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm in the way. Oh." But she's like, "Man, if you ever want to get a servant from this universe, look into Jenny." Finally, Nassan notices her and realizes she's in the way and like raises his hand and makes a ball to like punch her, makes a fist. And she just steals herself. She doesn't get out the way. She just braces herself for a punch. And I'm like, bless her loyal little heart. And she just earned herself another dress. But she is saved by the arrival of Arymilla. Finally, Arymilla does something good. Who draws Nassan away. Because now he's crazy, remember. He thinks Arymilla is his daughter. So, and Arymilla's got his real granddaughter, Sylvace, there behind her. And when he sees her too, then he's like, he realizes, oh shit, why is my fist in the air? He didn't even realize he was going to hit someone. Anyway, he's a crazy old man. So he leaves old poor Jenny alone. But to get rid of him, to make him go away, Arymilla sacrifices one of her own servants to the mad old pervert, and he takes her off to his tent. She's like, yeah, go have some mulled wine, and sends one of her pretty servants off. And yeah, not cool, man.
Yeah, awful.
Yeah, she's kind of gross. So apparently they are all going to dine together tonight. Some delicious cook has made some delicious food. Elenia and Nayan as well. Like, Nayan's invited too. It's like, oh, all right, okay. So now they're all heading back to Arymilla's tent. And Arymilla tells Elenia that she'll have to share tonight. So, oh, by the way, where you're sleeping tonight, you'll be sharing a tent with Nayan. And she almost freaks out. Like, holy shit, is Arymilla already onto us? Like, we literally had that conversation a minute ago.
Yeah.
Has news spread? Is our cover busted? Like, oh dear God, she's sick to her stomach. This is like a cruel joke. Nope, it's just pure coincidence. Just to scare the shit out of her. Anyway, So they resume their ride to dinner with Elenia wondering who will have to die first for her to get onto the Lion Throne. Will she have to kill Arymilla or Nassan? She's already got a list of people that she's going to kill. I would imagine Arymilla, if you're going to, if this is your plan. All right. We're going to change point of views now, so I don't know if anybody wants to interject.
Should we talk about that section maybe, and then because the other one's quite different. Vil, did you have any notes you wanted to make there?
I hate all these
Anything
people.
you wanted to say?
I hate all their names.
I mean, you should. These, so your gut is right. These were all Gabriel sycophants as well.
Yes.
We've read about these people before in
Yes.
Lord of Chaos.
They
Elenia
were
has a long
enjoying
conversation with
Gabriel's
Rand.
chaos that he was sowing with more gays,
Yeah.
and all of them were playing their own power-up game, waiting for the
They
ship
watch-
to fan.
They watch Rand fight those 5 swordsmen.
Mm.
And then when they sort of team up, like Nayan says, "Oh, they teamed up on you. That's why they got a hit." And then Rand is like, "Can I count on my enemies not to team up against me?" You know, like that's actually a good thing for me to practice. That was Nayan that said that to him. So like they've been around for a while, and we are made to dislike them from the beginning. So yeah, reading about them is
And we do. We really do.
mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished.
Yeah.
Listen, I'm wondering now not to justify any of these people's actions, but they were Ravine's sycophants. Was he, I mean, is their behavior a result of his compulsion?
Well, it's funny. The old crazy guy, what's his name? Nassan. He started going crazy when Gabriel died.
Mm-hmm.
So I wondered if maybe there was a connection there, like maybe he had something done to his head that Gabriel was sort of maybe either staving off or like had inadvertently or expressly caused.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, but did they also then, the other option is they just saw an opportunity to take House Trakan down and put themselves in power.
Yeah.
And were like, they saw what Ravine was doing.
Yeah.
To more gays.
They would just suck up to anyone. And I don't think they didn't need much compelling. Just
See,
nudging.
I think Ravine went in there expecting that he can play all of them. But he, there's been thousands of years of social evolution through the breaking. And they maybe one-upped him with their Dies Thomar scheming and scribbling that he almost like, holy shit, this is too hard.
No, he ran Camelin into the ground. No one, he was on top of
No, but maybe
And they
what
ran
Vinny was saying,
Camelin into the ground with him, with their own
like he didn't have to
desires
use
for the
compulsion
throne.
on them.
Yeah, like,
No, he didn't.
"Oh,
Yeah.
I see where this is going. Me benefiting and probably getting the throne. And everyone's playing
Absolutely.
throne games, running the place. No one putting Morgaze back in line because they just like,
No.
you carry on, Morgaze. You're playing perfectly into where we want you. Throne is mine in one summer. And half of them sang in the shower.
That was the song of the summer.
It
Yes.
was. And then the winter came and,
Yeah.
shit changed.
Oh, yeah.
You
It was
know.
a hell of a summer. That's
It
true.
was a long one.
What else did I have here? Elenia thinks that Elayne is probably in the palace surrounded by scores of well-trained servants, when actually no, like her servants are being trained from scratch.
They're very slow. Tediously so.
Elenia had made some inroads with her Andoran captors in Erangel. So Elenia is thinking to herself, like, some of the guards that were guarding me, Andoran guards in Erangel, which is where they were originally. They were kidnapped or rescued on the way from Erangel, I think, going to Camelin even. But in Erangel, while they were being held captive, she made some inroads with some of those guards because they were mostly Kyrenian. So, after that siege of Kyrian and Gabriel's rule and stuff, there were a lot of cross-pollinating. A lot of Andorans came over into Kyrian, joined, the Band of the Red Hand, and they were like the Kyrenian and the Andorans were encountering each other on the border, and some Kyrenian came and joined Andor. And so because they didn't have any allegiances to the Queen or anything, they just came from Kyrian. Elenia feels like she had made some inroads in gaining some of their support. Yeah, that's it for this section. Joe, you can do the next one and we can get stuck into some of Villy's best mates.
Speaking of Villy's best mate, we now join, what have I called him here? Captain Fuckface McAsswipe. That's his new name.
Come on, man. He's got a fake name. Use it.
Yeah, I just did. So he's skulking around the streets.
Dyelin.
Actually, Dyelin is even worse. You don't have to change his name.
No.
So Dyelin is skulking around the streets of Camelin at night because he has been summoned by his dark mistress, old Milli Skane herself. Now, Moritz, funny, and because the streets are empty, and in your previous chapter, you can just picture the guards walking around looking for suspicious people. Nope.
Well,
Nobody. Not here. But he's just come from the inner city, and now he's in the new city, and still nobody.
Now, the guards are in the areas furthest from the warehouses. The guards are into the
Furthest
outskirts.
away as they can be from the house full of black Aja and dog friends.
Well, I mean, in the defense, you would put the house full of dark friends and black Archer furthest away from where the guards are anyway.
The palace would actually probably also be, if you look at the map of Camelin, I wonder if they show the warehouse district in there, but like the palace is sort of toward the south of the city. So how far do you think the warehouses where they store food would be from the palace? Like quite far, because the pattern that
near the river
Master Norry had sort of identified was that the initial fires were being set as far away as possible from the food warehouses to draw the water wagons there, so that then the food warehouses can be set on fire, which are the actual target. So if the warehouses are very far from the palace, then the palace would be the area furthest from the warehouses where you would expect to see Birgitte's soldiers patrolling, which is what you said you would do. Anyway.
Just throwing up a map here.
Okay.
Of the city.
Okay.
Oh no, there's not enough. No, there's it is kind of in the south there, but there's not enough like notes and keys for me to tell you where the
warehouse district,
the warehouses are and stuff. Well, I imagine close to the river, because it would come in by
probably.
barge, and then
that makes sense.
Yeah,
it'd be nice if we were privy to Birgitte's map and her notes.
Yes, if she would just share it with other people.
And
Elayne talks about Birgitte's map like not being like super accurate, like the borders and stuff, but it's got every single town and every single road mapped on it. So like if you have to plan anything, it's super detailed. But the part of Andor off to the west, that's not really on the map because no one really cares about that. No. They haven't really been managing. They haven't really been in control of that for generations now.
Yeah.
Good old Two Rivers. I'm looking at the map of Camelin in the book, and there's no key or anything showing.
I would have to do some deeper diving. I did find one, but it was so small, and it's on Pinterest, and I can't make it bigger. Anyway, look over there. So yes, we'll go back to old skulky Dyelin walking around the streets. So no one there, of course, except for the assassin following him, who he's totally onto almost immediately. He is a no ninny himself. No. When he turns around one of the corners, he pushes himself up against the wall and lays in wait. And when the assassin comes around the corner, it's a quick stabby and a rifling through the body for clues to find out who this person was, maybe who sent him. There's a letter signed by whoever killed this man. Nope. Unfortunately, none of that. And also just a coin purse with a few coppers in it, which he steals and makes it look like, okay, when they find the body, it'll look like a robbery. So yeah, and this is all within like 3 seconds. He's done all of this. He is a seasoned douchebag. So he thinks to himself, like, was this why he was summoned, to come and walking in the streets so that they could have him murdered along the way to his meeting?
Typical dark
totally
friend
plausible.
Yes.
Yeah, like 100%.
100%.
100%. These are the kind of people you're working for. So, but maybe not. Could have been any one of the hundreds of thousands of enemies he's made in his life. So he'll keep his appointment, and he gets back on the road. He gets to the house where old Millie and her dark Aja pets are holed up, and old Falion Boda answers the door. As part of her punishment, as you recall, she was given to Hanlon. Sorry, I called him Hanlon. Dyelin, to do with as he pleased, but he decided to think long term. Her punishment with the Forsaken might end, and then he'll have an Aes Sedai dark friend as his enemy. So he and Falion made a deal instead. They'll share information, and in public, he will pretend that he's still smacking her butt and taking her aside for little trysts. But in private, they have a deal. He asks her where everyone else is, because it's the late at night and the house is empty. And the only other person besides Millie upstairs, Millie has a guest as well, and themselves, is some new dude, Muralin, who is a large fellow whose job description is kind of vague, but we can assume by his size and demeanor that it's probably local strong arm / torturer / stable hand.
He's the dude that poured the brandy down Jacob Carradine's throat. He's been Millie's little dumb brute for a while now. Yeah.
Yes, I didn't recall him at all. Also, Marilyn Gamelfin is MIA. She worries old Dyelin. He doesn't have a deal with her. Didn't manage to get in her good graces. But neither does he have a beef with her. So, whatever. It's kind of neutral at the moment, but she is Black Aja. So watch out for her. Is this the cat lady?
I think so.
Yeah. Malvin.
So she's probably out looking for cats. I don't know.
Marilyn. Marilyn. Gamelfin.
Gamelfin.
It's late. Sorry, everyone.
It's been a long recording. So, yeah, like I said, Millie, currently occupied upstairs with another guest. Muralin, he's out in the stable smoking his stinky tobacco, where he's not allowed to smoke in the house. So they have to wait in the kitchen, where they can also exchange what they have learnt. So
it's not too good Two Rivers tobacco.
No, I don't think he would even smoke it. He likes the rough stuff. So Falion pops upstairs just to say, okay, I got to go tell Millie that you're here, and then they meet downstairs in the kitchen. And his first question to her is, who is the man with Millie right now? So Falion didn't get a name, but she is very observant. She gives him a pretty thorough description. Footnotes: tall, lean, hard, Andoran, military, maybe noble, intelligent, cautious, good plain clothes, no pins or rings to identify him. I did a brief search on the interwebs, could find nothing about this man.
Same.
Don't worry about it. He's not going to be in the picture much longer. Also, Millie had 2 more visitors yesterday. The one in the morning was not as cautious as Mr. No Name upstairs. He wore cufflinks with the golden boars of House Sarand. Told you to remember those golden boars. And at first I thought, Jared?
Same.
But no. Jared is described as dark and square-faced, and this guy upstairs was also plump and yellow-haired.
Yeah.
Again, a search revealed nothing that I could find who this person was, but we do know House Sarand. That's the takeaway here.
It's Elenia's house.
The man in the after...
See, I listened.
Elenia's house, yes.
Yes, you did.
And read. And made notes.
10 podcast points to Willie.
Woohoo!
We still get points? I should definitely be in the lead by now.
I've been keeping score.
Secretly. We don't even know what our
4
points
years.
Very late. So, yes, man in the afternoon was more cautious than plumpy yellow hair man. But he did let slip. She did see a dagger with the 4 moons of House... 4 moons? Yes, 4 moons. Crescent moons. Of House Marn on the pommel. And I was like, oh dear, Arymilla. Watch your back. Unless you sent him. But Arymilla, it turns out, is not a dark friend. No. We only wish she was. So, House Marn and House... the other one.
Sarand.
Sarand. That's right. So our 2 main players from just the previous POV are now meeting. So also, Dyelin should now watch his back. He's a bit worried now because he was told that Elayne would be queen and that he would have her. He would have a queen. But if Millie is working with House Marn and with House Sarand, maybe they want Arymilla on the throne and their previous agreement is now off the table. So anyway, he might have some slow thritting. I'll choose my words more carefully. Throat slitting. Yes, you know what I mean. In his future, which was inevitable anyway. As per their agreement, Falion and Dyelin's, it's now time for old Doily to spill his beans to Falion. She always wants to know the stupidest stuff, like that seems completely unimportant to him. Like who's talking to who in the palace, who's avoiding who in the palace. Like, to him, it's gossip, but he doesn't see the Aes Sedai undercurrents that she does. because this woman is smart as a tack. Later on, becomes a dreadlord in the last battle. That's a whole other thing as well.
Yes.
So she's going to be around for a while. So, but before he can tell her anything about, because he did have some news that the sea folk left, that would be news to her. And also about the everybody acting weird, all the Aes Sedai acting weird, but Falion would know that because she was also feeling it. Murylin comes in from the stables, stinking of his stinky tobacco. Now, apparently it was Moradin that told him to take up Dyelin's job of harassing Falion, but in the book itself, it's Milli herself that told him. So I don't know who's giving him his orders, but maybe Moradin told Milli to tell him whatever. So basically, when Daved isn't around, Dyelin isn't around, then it is Murylin's job to smack her butt and take her into his room and bed and whatnot, just to make sure that she never ever forgets where she stands in the hierarchy in this little black heart.
Falion.
Jeez. It's rough.
Poor Falion, yes.
I mean, what did she do to deserve that treatment? That's a bit rough.
What did she do?
Yeah. Oh, what did she do? Nothing. Like
a couple things.
It's never stated in the books, Philly. We just have to assume it was something bad.
I'm gonna go with unfair fake news.
Alternative facts. So yeah, what's his name? I've already forgotten his name. Murylin lets Daved Dyelin know that what he's been up to. The second he enters the room, he sees Dyelin and her there, and he's like, "Are you messing with my woman?" And he's like, "Your woman? What the hell's going on here?" And it seems like, I don't know if Dyelin actually has like some sympathy for Falion, or he's just afraid to lose his connection with her. But on their way up, because they get saved again, because Milli screams downstairs like, "Hey, bring Dyelin up, let's have a chat." So on their way up, Falion asks Dyelin if she can have something, like, "Can you get me something to make Murylin sleep?" And he's like, "Sleep forever? I can get you some stuff that can make him sleep forever." Like trying to protect her. But is he trying to protect his black Aja sauce? Or is he actually have some feelings for her?
I don't think he has feelings for her. He thinks later, when he has the opportunity, he will gut her like a goose.
Okay.
I think
it's true. It was written in the holy text.
Misplaced feelings and with the good people.
I think it's
bringing
good people traits into him. It's Villy's bad influence. Like I'm trying to see the human side of these dark friends.
Hanlon, more so than anyone, of the plain dark friend variety, I feel like Hanlon is possibly the worst of them.
That's right. Thank you, Moritz, for bringing
He's
me
not
back
on
to
the
you almost had me.
The manipulating, conniving level as Milli Skane. He's definitely more the strong arm, dumb guide.
He says, I think it's to Falion, that the last woman that claimed to have a baby with him.
No, that's later.
Oh.
It's in my notes.
Sorry.
Get out of my chapter, bro.
But he does do that, and he is a terrible human being.
The worst. So let's get back to them, because they're heading up the stairs now to go see old Milli, our favorite person. If you think David's bad,
she's terrible.
So yeah, remember that guy we couldn't identify, that visitor that was upstairs? Told you not to worry. Yeah, he's a corpse right now on the floor. So apparently, whatever he did, whatever he had to say to Milli did not please her at all. So she tells Falion, like, you get Murylin later to come and dispose of this corpse here, because he's bleeding into my very fine Andoran rugs. Milli asks Hanlon if he is the father of Elayne's child. First question. So the rumor again is getting everywhere.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't know who the father is. And like, wait, do you think like I'm going soft? Like I'd be keeping secrets with you and not telling you if I was already sleeping with her? And she's like, oh, I would never believe such a thing. And he's like, yeah, the last woman I got pregnant, this is the story. I killed and I threw her down a well. And like, geez, dude, holy shit. And Milli knows. She goes, oh yeah, Catrell Mosinane, an ironmonger's daughter. And she even knows that he split her head with a rock before throwing her in. Is that to prevent her from drowning at the bottom? Like, do you have a soft heart? And he's just like, holy shit, Like, first of all, she knows about it, and then she knows all these details about it as well. So now he's a bit on edge. Good. The next point on the agenda is Dyelin helping some Suldam and maybe even some Damane escape. Could you organize that for me? We've got to recall that her mission in Camelin is to sow chaos from Moradin. So
That'd do it.
Oh yeah, she's doing a good job. Well, she's full of ideas at least. So like, get some Suldam to escape. Like, if you can get some Damane included in that escape, that would be great, but not strictly necessary. She also wants him to move the guards away from the storehouses, the ones that you were just talking about. Good idea. And he's like, I can't do that. There are spreadsheets to be filled out. They're gonna know exactly it was me who told them to move. Like, my cover will be blown instantaneously if we do that. Like, I can, because she's trying to get some storehouses burnt, and he's like, listen, they are bringing in grain through gateways, so burning the storehouses it's a huge risk for very little reward. They're going to replenish those stocks anyway. But I can maybe arrange something about the Suldam escape, so let me look into that. She also wants to know how close he is to enjoying Elayne's affections, and he grossly, in many senses of the word, overestimates his chances there with her. But he says he has to move slow. He's not like he can get her in a corner and tickle her out of her dress. She's not that kind of girl. She's like, okay, fine. Take your time. But she doesn't have all the time in the world. We got to move. We got other things to do. So what about looting the city? Some other plans. Millie's been brainstorming. David's on board with that. He's like, cool, I do enjoy some looting, but I'll also again need a surefire exit strategy. As soon as that happens, I'll need a straight line to the gates to get out with some loyal men before I get killed and strung up. So then is when Millie notices the blood on David's gauntlet from his previous encounter in the street, and he tells her about the street murder just now, wondering again if it was Millie who had sent him. Because she's kind of like laughing to herself at him under her breath and stuff, and he's just like, I wonder if Millie's going a little bit crazy as well, maybe crazy with power.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It's going to her head.
It's going to her head. So regardless, he adds her to his murder list, building a list like Arya Stark, along with Marilyn Gamelfin, and of course Falion and Miralyn too, because it would be better if there were no witnesses left alive after what has transpired here. And that's how that chapter ceases.
Yeah, he's no fool. He's terrible, but he's no fool.
Yeah, that's a pity. Like, you look at the Forsaken in the books, and they're all fools.
Yes.
And all these lower minions, all the smart ones.
Yeah.
Like, with no power.
Yeah. Thank goodness.
Well, that's why the Forsaken get as far as they do, is because they have all these super clever people working for them.
That's why the Dark One has never broken free and never will.
Yet.
Nope.
I've just awoken Willie from his slumber.
No slumbering. Yeah, I mean, it is hard work reliving these chapters again.
You don't like this?
I don't like Hanlon. I mean, I love Milli Skane and what she's doing effectively, and like, she hasn't wavered from let Lord of Chaos rule. She's still stuck before the
She
judge
is effective
and doing it well. But I mean, it wouldn't even classify as a top moment for me, because it's got Hanlon involved. He's just kind of gross.
It's
Dyelin.
an understatement. He's kind of gross. He's the worst human.
He's not fun.
No. Tell you who's pretty badass as well, though, is Falion, who asks Hanlon to like beat her up and give her bruises to make their whole situation continue.
Easier.
Yeah. Or more like to sell it.
Keep up appearances.
Yeah.
Falion is a bit of a survivor. I mean, she's...
Yeah. A lot of these doctors have to. If you're not a survivor, you are going to die. If you're not super creative and resilient.
Just look at old White Cloak.
Jacob Garrett.
Garrett.
Oh, Carradine. Always makes me laugh.
Rest
What a
in
funny
pieces. And drink.
After he got his whole family killed.
Yeah.
One by one.
That's like a metaphor for this whole Andoran politics chapter. In the end, it was all for nothing. We went through all that hell.
Hanlon here is wondering where Marilyn Gamelfin is. He doesn't like that he doesn't know what she's up to. She's been tasked by Milli Skane to infiltrate the palace, which is the one that said, like, oh, it's going to be really hard. There's so many channels there, but Millie's like, do it. So that's what she's busy with. And she's also involved with the kidnapping later. Hanlon thinks to himself, Cheyenne is a stingy woman, except when it came to her own comforts. And I wondered if that's a holdover from her poorer days, the daughter of a saddle maker outside of Whitebridge or something like that. Yeah.
Yes.
And that wasn't very long ago. So, maybe like the, power going to her head and the way that she treats money and stuff is indicative of that. Who was the person that visited Milli Skane that had a half moon scar next to his eye and a wart on his chin?
That's
Dead man.
Marn.
Oh, Marn's guy. Okay.
Yeah, she carries on to describe him as not just a plump, golden-haired guy, but he's the one with the scar as well.
Okay, so he's still alive. He's not the dude that was lying in the study when
you'll never know who he was.
No, he's
this
a nameless dead guy.
Okay.
That's a red shirt, if there ever was one.
Yes. Okay, that is it from me.
There's another scene that I forgot to. I thought you might mention it. Is when she's like asking him questions, Millie, and she's standing by the fire, giggling and laughing at him under his breath. And when she turns around, she's got a dagger in her hand, and it kind of like shocks Dyelin that he didn't even see her move for it. When did she take it out?
Well, Dyelin at that moment was also thinking like he could move on her.
But she's realized.
No, you don't. Not Millie. She'll get.
Yeah, she's killed 19 people so far. She's assassinated. So she is very deft with that knife, unless she's trying to stab Matt in a barn, but then Taviran nature does kick in.
The luckiest man in the world.
Yes, that's the only one she can't kill with a dagger. But yeah, she is very deft with that dagger.
Wonder if this one hisses if you drop it in a bucket of water.
I'd go probably with that hissing dagger. Kind of like the dagger that I'm trying to get in my
She's
D&D
coming up. She's coming up in the ranks of the Dark Friends.
She has tainted daggers. Is that why she's going mad? We know there's a history with tainted daggers and madness in this series. Those were she's definitely had magical daggers in the past.
Yes, 100%.
Not the tainted dagger, so
no, not the one with the essence of more death. And Mashadar.
Okay, no. There's a scene in the same chapter as well. He picks up a wine glass. Daved Hanlon picks up a wine glass, and he's like looking at it. Can I drink this? Like he looks at it, like there's a dead guy on the floor and two like half-empty wine glasses. And like I don't know if I should be drinking this. And then when she pulls out that dagger, he goes, "Oh my god!" And he takes a big slug of the wine and goes, "Oh shit! Wait, what have I done?
What have I done?"
She's got him totally off balance.
That sounds like a favorite moment if I have heard any. Have you guys chosen favorite moments? Willie, you've probably got like 10 favorite moments that you need to pick from. Just give me the top one.
My favorite moment was when we got to the end of chapter 15 and I saw the chapter icon for the next chapter, hoping that it's going to turn the tide.
What's the chapter icon?
It's a bull with pointy horns. Hey. You know what that means.
Oh, Gareth. G-Man.
G-Bang is back.
Nice. That's exciting. Okay, so long story short, your favorite moment was being done with these chapters.
Being done. Yeah.
This last one I thought was really cool. This whole Elenia Sarand and Nyan Aaron.
Because the politics of it, and stuff. We're going to be tracking it, but we're going to find that all of this politics is pretty mundane.
I feel like I should come with a visual aid next time with like the whiteboard. Maybe we need to record an episode we put on YouTube with video to just show the houses. These are the lords moving from the south from Morundi. These are the ones that are hiding out around Camelin. These are the ones with Arymilla camped in these camps. You know, like
I've got an Always Sunny in Philadelphia whiteboard meme in my mind
everywhere.
That's what it'll be like if we try and put this on a board. We'll all end up like that.
I could do it. Look, I think Nablus or someone should just make a video about it.
I struggled to find the purpose of anything in this chapter. I know there's this board setting with the houses, but this is just, again, it was like milking cat nipples. Like, lot of
Forcing
hard work,
divorce.
a lot of scratching, a lot of bleeding for very little milk.
Fair enough. Well, Joe, do you have a more positive outlook? Did you have a favorite moment?
Like, honest to God, I'm not joking that I 100% of the time forget about favorite moments. And I did again today, but I had a quick think right now, and I made special mention of Janny, the epically loyal maid.
Yeah.
My favorite moment is just Janny in between the horny old crazy man and her mistress, saving the day by pretending to be silly, but and ready to take a punch. Go Janny.
Yes.
She's the only
Go,
decent
Janny.
That
person
is
in that
such a
camp.
somber moment. Like, this lady is willing to put up with a punch from a mad king.
Older lady as well. I got the sense that Janny is like not young. She's been Elenia's maid for 20 years.
Yeah.
My note on that actually was that Elenia still thinks that to keep Janny's loyalty, she needs to keep buying her dresses after she's been with her for 20 years. Like, no personal loyalty, just like, I'll keep buying her dresses, she'll keep being loyal. Just another window into Elenia's personality. Yeah. My favorite moment was when the caressing the child, the weave that Monaelle does, and she basically delves Elayne, and she gives her all that information. Elayne somewhat sarcastically asks Monaelle if she can tell the stuff that she's relaying to Elayne about, like the morning sickness, the uncertainty when channeling, the moodiness, about the father of the child, if she's getting all that from this weave. And Monaelle bursts out laughing and she replies, "I know this from bearing 7 children and having 3 husbands, Elayne Trakand."
No substitute for experience.
Such a pro. She's had 7 children and has 3 husbands. That's how she knows the husband should stay away and all that stuff. Yeah, that was really great. There was another little honorable mention between Dyelin and Birgitte, who are constantly sniping each other. And at one point, Dyelin says to Birgitte, "Some women can make a fish bite by crooking a finger, Lady Birgitte. Other women have to drag their bait all over the pond." And then Avienda bursts out laughing in the background.
Yeah, that was a good one. I remember that. Drag their bait all over the pond.
Then we've got one more favorite moment from Jonna, and it goes like this.
Hi guys, it's Jonna Pierce reaching out with my favorite moment from these most recent chapters. I would have to say it's got to be Elayne giving you guys a shout out to the best podcast, Blood and Ashes. It's a pretty funny moment where she's trying to figure out what joke Bridget might have played on Avienda. Anyways, just wanted to share that, and thanks again for all you guys do, and have a great day.
Nice one. Thanks, Jonna. I do enjoy all the interplay between Birgitte and Avienda. They're both like cool characters as well. And like with Dyelin thrown into the mix, and just like anyone that sort of leans or looks like they might threaten Elayne, like Avienda, like they're all like just firing barbs at each other and other people the whole time. It's cool shit.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of strong women throwing barbs at each other, but none is as enjoyable as what's going on between Birgitte and Dyelin. It's just great.
Yes, it's
So
cool
they don't like each other. It's almost a Berylyn Fayul type situation.
Yeah, they just don't like each other, and they're never gonna. I also like Jonna's point about Elayne using blood and ashes. I like this recurring theme of Elayne sort of being a bit of a foul-mouthed booze hound sometimes. Like she's getting drunk and swearing all the time. It's pretty great. Yes, so thank you, Jonna. And to our other listeners, you can send us your favorite moments, your thoughts, your theories, corrections, or even questions via any number of social media platforms listed in the episode description below. They're right there. Just scroll down and have a look. The easiest would be by going to our website, bloodandashespodcast.com, and leaving us a voice note, which we can include in the episode, just like the other 3 we played in this one. When you've bought a t-shirt, left a message, and rated the podcast in your favorite podcast app, you can start to prepare for next time on Blood and Ashes, where we will cover chapters 16 through 19. The subject of negotiations, secrets, a chat with Swan, and surprises.
All right.
You have a couple of chunky ones there, Joe, but we all know you're up to it.
Ah.
Just a heads up.
Yeah.
But the names of these chapters make me hopeful. I can't remember. It's now been about 3 months since I read the book. So it's been a while now. So like now these chapter titles are not really giving away an awful lot.
Jody, you can do it. You can totally do it. I know.
Do it anyway.
You've got my backing. In actual fact, I'm supporting you by donating you my chapters as well. You can just do the whole lot.
So kind, so magnanimous. Well, we'll have to wait another 2 weeks to hear how Jody does. And until that happens, I will say to all of you, sleep well and wake.
Because wake you will from the stream.
Nice.
All these chapters will put you to sleep. Goodbye.